should know. I have never really liked you at all. I cannot hide it anymore. I've been thinking about the future, trying to forget about the past. So many ways that I could change for the better. Don't even
This is a true crime discussions channel. We speculate. This is all just speculation. Because it's true crime, it's for mature audiences only. There will be no children allowed, no exceptions. Everything on this channel falls under fair use. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It's free.
Hey y'all, it's so good to see you. I hate this layout. Why is it doing that? My goodness. No. Oh, that's better. Okay. It's good to see y'all. I don't have my phone up, so let me say hey to y'all. Abellis Luna, it's good to see you. Bad Girl Edith. Lori, Tony, good to see you. Jenny Jen. I don't know if I said you bad girl. I think I did. Hey, Miss Sarah. Allie X, good to see you. Orange Rose, good to see you. Lori Green, Rose Thorn, Janet, Chrissy, Cara. Artemis Prom, it's good to see you. Becky P, good to see y'all. Nightbot, good to see you in here. Lisa, good to see you. I think I got just about everybody. So I'm not going to call out any YouTubers specifically, but I mean, y'all, excuse me. I'm real upset about the clickbait in Maddie's case. Like, hold on a minute. I'm trying to get to our current live. Let me just go ahead and pull this up and show you. I'm not going to mention specific YouTubers. You know, if you go to a channel and you see that they're claiming they have new content and it's not new content, you know, I just won't go back. I don't understand why you would even do that personally. Like, why would you do that? Because when you don't have new content, people are going to get mad and they're going to stop coming to your channel. Like, that's the best way to lose subscribers. Yeah, you might get, 2,000 more views on the video than you would have if you'd have just been honest to begin with. But you're going to lose subscribers for that. Like, people get tired of seeing clickbait everywhere. If it's not new, don't call it new. I want to show you this specifically. If you look where Mr. Stearns is right here, this I'm going to play for you is titled Maddie Soto Case, New Body Cam Footage Released. And it's from 6 days ago. Okay. So I scour these YouTube streets and I look for new information in the Maddie Soto case. Because if there's something new, I want to be able to get it and put it out here for you guys and talk about it. So I click on this, right?
We are getting a new look at body camera video showing Stephen Stearns and Jennifer Soto both being questioned by deputies the day after they reported Maddie Soto missing.
We know now Stearns accused of sexually abusing and killing the 13-year-old last year. And let's join.
Now, you see what body cam footage that is, okay? I was the first one to release it, but I was so worried about accidentally clickbaiting y'all that let me show you. We'll come right back to this video to see what they say about it. Let me show you how I released it, okay? First, I released it in a live. Now, let's see how it came out in the live. We've been doing lots of lives, y'all. Hey, Natasha. New to me, let's analyze. And then I changed it to discussing the new body cam footage. I was so worried about clickbaiting, y'all. I said new to me. That's how that's titled. And it's from a month ago. That is the same body cam footage that the news released. Calling it new 6 days ago. Why? I don't understand why people do that. Why do that? Like, I'll never understand. And these channels, and I'm not about the drama. We're not a drama channel. But these channels, you know who you are. If the shoe fits, lace that bitch up and wear it. Why? What do you gain from clickbaiting people? Again, maybe you'll get more views on that video, but people get pissed off. I get pissed off when I'm looking for new stuff and I come to your channel and it's the same old BS day after day after day after day. As of right now, the only thing new in the Maddie Soto case is the documents. The DA has finally started clapping back at the
Let's join Amanda McKenzie, going to break some of this video down. And Amanda,
but again, they said this is new body cam footage from 6 days ago, about a week ago, and it's not new. Like, I'm just frustrated. Hey, everybody coming in, it's good to see y'all. Okay, so let's watch their breakdown.
there are a lot of questions. The demeanor, he's very calm in that. Looking back, we look at a lot of these different details now this morning.
That's right. And this is body-worn camera video that we are now getting a look at when they interview both Stephen Stearns and Maddie's mom, Jennifer Soto, at their front door. And Stephen Stearns appears to be
New body cam footage that we're getting a look at. Ma'am, don't play me. I know that you got people that run these YouTube streets looking for this stuff. Stop it. It's not new to you. Maybe you just got it from your FOIA request or whatever the news does to get information, but it's not new.
be very calm, which could be interpreted as unusual behavior for a guardian of a 13-year-old after she's been reported missing, and the parents allegedly have no idea where she could be. Now, in this video, take a look. You can see that Maddie's mom, Jennifer, is describing the day's events to Kissimmee police. Stearns, very calm and relaxed, similar to the way he was acting when Fox 35 first interviewed him shortly after Maddie was reported missing. While at their front door, police asked about any recent arguments. Jennifer said Maddie sent a few messages to a friend stating that she wanted to run away to the woods. But when the officer asked to see those texts, Jennifer couldn't find anything about.
So I do find that weird. And I know a few of you have told me your thoughts and things on that. But like, again, it makes me think that Jen Soto was trying to push the narrative of, oh, she's missing and somebody kidnapped her. And she wanted basically step into to put her body where carnivores would eat it, so that she would always just be a missing child and they would have gotten away with literal homicide. That's my thought on that.
About running away. Then about 20 minutes later, Stearns takes the officer to the family cars for them to have a look around.
The silver Lincoln is mine. Well, it's actually my parents, but I got a new car right now. It's in better condition.
This is the one that she said she doesn't like to ride in?
Yeah, this is the one she was embarrassed to get dropped off in. So
Okay.
I was that age. I understood.
I got you.
Forgive the donut there. I got a flat tire earlier this
That's
afternoon.
fine. You might want to put some and cover the fireman there. Someone will steal that, man.
Oh, jeez.
Absolutely nothing new about that. We've been analyzing that video, or it's been out for a month. I haven't analyzed it day after day after day after day like some people do. Been out for a month, sir.
Yeah, I stuck it there when I was changing the tire.
We now know from investigators that at the time this video was recorded that Maddie was already dead. Stearns is still in the Osceola County Jail, and his next court date concerning the sexual battery case is scheduled for April 23rd. Then the murder case is scheduled to start in September. Reporting live from the Osceola County Courthouse, Amanda McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
All right.
Oh, hold on, I'm going to read two comments real quick. Roxanne, good to see you, said she should have said body cam from 1 year ago, the night Maddie was reported missing. The reports that she wanted to go live in the woods was not said at the time, but came from her friends much later. That would have been an accurate news title, or, you know, that would have portrayed it accurately. And I would have much more appreciated that. Ali X said, I had always respected Nancy Grace, but a few times now she has facts completely wrong. Don't they fact check anymore? I got a big problem with Nancy Grace. And I'm going to show you guys these two things from, actually, we'll go ahead and discuss my big issue with Nancy Grace real quick, because this has got the other thing I want to discuss in it too. Let me show you this video. Now, I made this video when I was out. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be out again tomorrow. I saw this and I about had a fit. I was driving down the road and I screen recorded this. So it's like the worst editing ever, because I did it while I was driving down the road for the most part. But Yeah, because that's how upset it made me. I was like, oh, hell no, we're not doing this. Right here. Nope, not today, Satan. That's what it's titled. Watch this mess. This is my Nancy Grace video. Yeah, not doing this. I'm going to play a clip for you from Nancy Grace that was taken out of context. And then I'm going to play the original for you. Please pay close attention because no, we're not doing this. No, ma'am.
Maddie Soto, just 13 years old. Mommy gets immunity? Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
I sent them to sleep upstairs in the guest bedroom.
Not today, Satan.
So that I could get a good night's sleep. I think we need to get you a lawyer. But that was me assuming that you guys had the wrong guy, not that he had done all this to her. I don't know why I wasn't thinking him. I believed the sexual stuff, but I didn't want to believe that he had done anything evil to her.
What you just said is the sex stuff is fine.
It's not fine. I look back now, I'm just like, he was lying. He was faking.
You can go even worse. She's pregnant. Have you ever found a pregnancy test at home?
I have 2 underneath the kitchen, the bathroom sink, but I haven't seen if they're still there or not.
Let me run this misinformation back for you one more time.
It's not fine. I look back now, I'm just like, he was lying. He was faking.
You can go even worse. She's pregnant. Have you ever found a pregnancy test at home?
I have 2 underneath the kitchen, the bathroom sink, but I haven't seen if they're still there or not.
Now listen to the clip in its entirety.
Series, I keep hearing.
Let me just state real quick that it still has not been confirmed by law enforcement that Maddie Soto was with child or was not with child. That is something we won't know until trial.
Because here's the deal. You don't go home until she's found.
No, I know.
So what are your fears?
What I've heard is, what if she upset him?
Some of your emotion up until this room, I think some of the emotion in this room is sincere. I think a lot of it's because I'm being an asshole. I'm telling you things you don't want to hear that shouldn't be said out loud. But when you talk to the news, when you talk to deputies, it feels, based on my experience in this job, that it's not sincere. I feel like some of your sadness is not real sadness. I feel like when you gave the interview with Fox 35, it was not sincere. Looking at that video one time, I feel like your cries were sincere. And I'm not saying that because you're a bad person. I feel like sometimes people struggle to show real emotion when they're aware of what the truth is. So it has to be fake. This is demise for the past, let's say, 5 years, right? But her going missing, her disappearance, if you have knowledge of how it happened, where it happened, an inclination, that emotion's not going to feel sincere because you're already aware of what happened. It's almost because
if I knew anything, I promise you, I would tell you. Like, I am willing to take a lie detector test, whatever the fuck you want, but I don't know anything. He's never mentioned anything. I've never seen any signs. I tried watching her like a hawk. I thought I was doing a good job, but I wasn't. I was oblivious to everything. 4 years.
Minimum. That's just how that far back the cloud goes. I find it hard to believe for me that you were so worried about how many pills she took at night, but not where she slept or what relationship she was. His interest in her.
I thought we were all safe. I thought because that he hadn't shown me anything so far. Like, everything seems fine. Like, he seemed like he treated her like
he treats you. In his mind.
It's so fucking disgusting.
So now he's in jail because of what we found on his phone, not because somebody came forward and reported that he was abuse.
No, I know.
She's not old enough to consent. She's not old enough to have a thought process to even want anything that was happening to her. It's abuse. So he's in jail for that. But something caused what, right? We started murder. Because we can call it murder. She didn't die naturally. She didn't overdose. She didn't have a heart attack. We started murder on Monday. Something had to cause that. He's been having unrestricted sexual activity for a long time. He's getting what he wants from her, probably from you, and who knows whoever else, right? So it's not like he woke up or went to bed Sunday and he was like, you know what? I'm done with this, but I'm going to kill her. Something happened. People don't just wake up and like, you know what? They leave people. They break up with people. But usually things cause people to snap. Now, you know what? I'm in trouble. Or I feel like I'm going to, or him being out. We can go even worse. She's pregnant.
That's what questions last night led me to believe when we started talking about her period.
I was told that her and her friend, granted, male, never had a period, but that somebody found it weird that they were no longer on the same cycle. Could be different because she's a teenage girl. Could be that she missed her period. Have you ever found a pregnancy test at home? That wasn't yours?
I have 2 underneath the kitchen, the bathroom sink, but I haven't seen if they're still there or not.
Okay. But you haven't seen any used ones in the trash? No. Their relationship hasn't changed?
No.
Okay. So what do you think happened Sunday? Other than him killing her?
So as you can see, Nancy Grace clickbaited everybody into making them think that she not only clickbaited, right?
Yeah, not doing
Not doing
this. I'm going to
me just
play a
close out
clip
of
for
this.
you from Nancy.
She not only clickbaited everybody, but she put on a poor deceased 13-year-old child that she was pregnant. And we don't know that to be factual. Like, why would you do that? That, again, goes back to what I'm talking about clickbait. Why would you put that on that 13-year-old child, as if enough wasn't already put on her to begin with the abuse and unimaginable shit she endured for so many years of her life? But no, we're going to go in now that she's deceased and make everybody think she's pregnant so I can get more clicks and views. No, I'm so, y'all, I'm so irritated with this mess. I can't stand it. It makes me so mad. Okay. So I do want to play for you 2 short clips from the news about Maddie's memorial. Moving on from the clickbait stuff. Then we're going to look at a document that references a documentary that basically the defense wants the jury to watch. I'm going to try to find this documentary and talk about it because I want to watch it with y'all. Hopefully the stream won't be stopped and I won't be demonetized. But if it is, stay here. If my stream goes away, stay here. I'll be right back and we'll have to watch something else. So right now, this is 2 short recaps on the memorial for her. You know, she had been reported missing and found dead for a year. Found deceased a year ago. I didn't mean it to sound so cold. I didn't mean to say it like that.
Morning, but never made it.
Okay, hold on. Hey, Heather. I saw Rachel came in too. Heather said, unfortunately, a lot of YouTubers are after as many visitors as they can get because of the monetary gain. Right. I make it a rule in my house, even though we definitely benefit from the money that I make from the YouTube channel. But if you make it a rule that you are not allowed to depend on that money, because at any time your channel could be shut down. Like it could happen for any reason, right? So you can't depend on YouTube money. And if you're not dependent on the money to pay your bills, to do this, if you look at it like a nice blessing when you get paid and you can pay some extra bills, maybe get caught up on things, that's always wonderful and a lovely blessing. But once you start depending on it and you have to have that every month to pay your bills, or you have to have it to do this, that, or the third, then that's when you get into the dangerous territory of clickbait and having to make sure people visit your channel. And so you start lying and you start putting things in your titles that aren't necessarily true. And then while, like I said, it might bring you more views and more money in the beginning, in the end, you're driving your channel, your name, your brand into the dirt. I can't stand it. Hey, boomers, good to see you. Okay, so this is talking about her 1-year anniversary of when she passed away and was reported missing. Oh, thank you, Sarah. That was so sweet.
Marks 1 year since Madeline Soto was first reported missing.
Her story has taken many heartbreaking turns, including the news that investigators believe she was murdered by her mother's boyfriend. West 2's Bob Hazen takes a look at the case we've seen so far and what's coming next.
Was dropped off close to school this morning, but never made it.
That was the moment a year ago today when deputies first met Madeline Soto's mom, Jennifer, reporting her 13-year-old daughter was missing. It was a day after Maddie's birthday party. The original story, her boyfriend, Stephen Stern, said he dropped Madeline off near Hunters Creek Middle School.
She never actually entered the school.
While deputies and volunteers searched for the girl, detectives took Stern's phone and said they found pictures and videos of him raping Maddie. They also found Maddie's shoe, backpack, and school computer in the trash from their Kissimmee complex. On February 28th, Maddie's mom and Stearns came to the Orange County Sheriff's Office for a news conference on the case. Instead,
hey, Michelle. It's good to see you. Boomer said Nancy Grace, such drama, intends to interrupt her guests. Yes, she does. Bad Girl said, I'm glad I didn't grow up with social media. It's all about clickbait, followers, and views. And you know, it's like it's especially bad for teens growing up because for several reasons, one of them being that they'll put stuff out that they might later regret, and once it's on the internet it's forever. And two, when you get views, I mean, no matter how small you are, even if you get one view, it gives a hit of dopamine in your brain, and dopamine is the emotion that makes you happy, that makes you it's like a natural high almost. Okay. So once you start getting that hit of dopamine, you get addicted to getting that hit of dopamine. And so you start putting out videos, and then sometimes, I mean, it's just the nature of it. People get tired of hearing about one case. They're not as interested in another case as they were the other case. And so your views drop. And then again, what do? Well, you got to learn that that's just how it is. You're not going to get as many views on certain things as you get on other things. And you need to be adult enough to deal with that and to not make the decision to do things for views. It's really bad as far as teens go, because God, once they get that hit of dopamine and they have maybe a video on TikTok go viral, and then they put out, the next 10 videos and get like very little views, if any views at all, what are they going to do next to go viral again? I mean, then you run into dangerous territory of putting shit out on the internet that you don't want out there, That's my thought on that. Hey, Darlene. Michelle said, okay, it's good to see you. Darlene said, hey, everyone. I'm so glad you're dressing clickbait. And there's so much jealousy and drama right now with YouTubers. So right about YouTube money. Oh, thank you. She is very disrespectful, Tony. I'm trying to highlight your comment. Tony, she is very disrespectful to everyone. Oh yeah, please don't mention other channels that you suspect of clickbait. Like, I understand why you do it, but I don't want to call out channels specifically because I don't want to make it about drama. We all know of channels that do that, and we'll leave it at that.
Dead detectives grilled him.
I'd like to try to help, but I feel like I should probably have a lawyer present at this point.
That day, they arrested Stearns. 2 days later, Maddie's body was found. Interviews with her mom also revealed that she'd been letting Stearns sleep in the same bed with Maddie alone several times, including the night before she was killed.
I was oblivious to everything. 4 years?
Minimum. That's just how that far back the cloud goes.
In a jail call, Stearns' father asked his son how it got to that point.
How all this came about. I mean, it was just totally baffled.
Andy.
Oh, you didn't start it, but you participated in it, which is just as bad.
Prosecutors plan to ask for the death penalty for Stearns, and in recent weeks, his lawyers have filed motions to get much of the evidence against him tossed out, including everything that was found on his phone. They've also asked the judge to block the public and the media from all court proceedings. A hearing on that idea will be held next month. Covering Orange County and Orlando, Bob Hazen, West 2 News.
I have just I actually found out through Plunder, but I pulled the document and it's on my Patreon, where Judge Karsten talks about the hearing for that. The hearing for whether the media will be allowed to be involved in the pretrial to basically film it. That hearing is March.
It's been nearly a year.
20th. And that document's on my Patreon. I haven't had time to put a video out on it yet. So this is specifically referencing the memorial that we saw a few clippets from. Hey, Mrs. O.
It's been nearly a year since 13-year-old Maddie Soto was found dead on the side of an Osceola County road. And tonight, her community paid tribute on what would have been Maddie's 14th birthday. West 2's Tonight Gabriel shows us the service of remembrance for her in St. Cloud.
She was full of life, and she was trying to find her way.
On what would have been her 14th birthday, people in St. Cloud celebrated for Maddie Soto to show that she forever lives in their hearts.
I hope you're dancing in the sky.
Almost a year since the young girl was killed, the crowd at Lakefront Park on Saturday wore shirts with words reading, "Justice for Maddie, Forever 13, Be the Voice." One of Maddie's friends wrote a poem about how much she misses her.
But I feel okay knowing you're doing fine up above. I'll try not to cry, I'll try not to shed, but I'll always be lucky you were my friend.
She was someone who loved music, dancing, arts, and journaling. A wall of 100 stuffed animals was on display at the service. They were picked up from the memorial site near the place where Maddie's body was found.
I was there several times when young children would come with a little stuffed animal with their parents and go over and put it on the fence. It was so heartrending.
The community in St. Cloud says the tragic case of Madeline Soto serves as a reminder that they need to work together to better protect young children.
How many times, if ever, those who noticed Maddie's odd behaviors reported her?
I think that parents
Hey, Gail, good to see you.
need more support right from the beginning, because this is happening to children younger and younger and younger.
The St. Cloud police chief says everyone has been heartbroken by this. He shared a letter from the mayor.
The children in our community shall forever feel unconditional support, and their voices will always be heard.
Advocates are working to place a bench in the park in memory of Maddie. Their long-term goal? Building a children's museum in Florida to honor all the lives lost to violence.
Justice means understanding how these tragic losses came to be, and what can we do to bring these disparities to a decline.
Covering Osceola County in St. Cloud, Sanega Bergadigues, Watch 2 News.
So that's a recap of her memorial, or the 1 year anniversary memorial service. Mrs. O, I heard that none of the Soto family members were there. I heard that an aunt came from her father's side, but that was it. I'm sure they did something very private for her, though. You know, that would be, they're already being crucified by the public, you know. So I understand why they didn't show up, but I'm sure they did something in private for her. I hope so. Hey, y'all, I've got some okay, I did put chapters in. I want to go to the one. Did you guys know that they want the jurors to visit the execution chambers? They want the jurors. Hold on a minute. Let me clear my throat. No. Okay, I'm done. They want the jurors to visit the execution chambers. And they want them to watch this documentary that portrays what it's like to be on death row. The state of Florida as the plaintiff versus, and what it's like to live on death row and what it's like in the last moments of life, right? So I'm going to play the first part of this document so you can kind of understand what they're saying, and I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to grab the name of this documentary, and we're going to watch this documentary that they want the jurors to watch, because I guarantee you it's going to make you so upset and feel so bad for death row inmates. And I mean, again, it just goes back to the sympathy thing. They're also in this video, I talk about emotion, where they say they don't want the prosecution to tell the jurors they can't rely on their own sense of morality, sympathy, and compassion. And that means that if that motion's passed, then I can almost guarantee the defense is going to say you can rely on your own sense of moral sympathy, compassion, and there's another one, I forget. And if they say that, then that's going to put that idea into the juror's head. And then they're going to say, well, am I being sympathetic if I give him the death penalty? Is that a moral thing I need to do? Am I showing compassion by giving him the death penalty? I have a big problem with all of this stuff. Tyler's sister-in-law was there and spoke. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's listen to the first part of this document. This is Stephen Michael Stearns, the defendant, and it is a motion to allow jurors to visit the execution chambers at Florida State Prison. There is music in this. I had somebody ask me to not put the music in it, so I won't do that from now on unless y'all really like the music in it. Or in the alternative, to introduce video footage showing the conditions in which the defendant will be housed and ultimately executed. Can you believe that? They are doing everything they can to get as much sympathy for Stephen as they can. Stoic says Aunt Nessie needs to put the drink down. She's so sloppy, nasty, and mean, in my opinion. Super unprofessional to keep harping on poor Maddie being with child. Really not okay. Oh, and no sympathy for Stephen Stearns whatsoever. Right? I agree. And it's good to see you, Stoic. Rachel said, I don't see any of this happening. It seems like a major overreach. And, you know, I've been really upset, but somebody pointed out that if, with her putting in all these motions, Stephen can't go back and appeal saying that he had improper counsel, because this counsel is going above and beyond. It reads, the defendant, Stephen Stearns, by and through his undersigned counsel and pursuant to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, 9, 16, and 17 of the Florida Constitution, and other laws, statutes, and cases as set forth herein, files this motion and requests this court to order that the jury be allowed to visit the execution chamber at the Florida State Prison to view the manner in which Mr. Stearns would be executed, or in the alternative to introduce video footage that accurately shows the conditions of, quote, death row, unquote, at which the defendant will be housed, including footage of both the actual lethal injection chamber and gurney in which the defendant will be strapped. And they want the jury, before they make their decision, to go look at death row in prison, okay, and see the gurney with the straps and all of that the person is strapped down to when they get the lethal injection, and also see the electric chair. Now, I want you to think about jurors who have, just the public who's never even gotten in trouble at all. Okay. Never been to jail, none of that. And then they go and see something like that. What do you think that that's going to do to their mindset as far as ruling for Stephen Stearns to get the death penalty? Roxanne said Maddie had just turned 13. The constant possibility of being with child statements by one creator almost caused me to stop watching her. I said something too. That's good, because we don't know. And until it's said in court, we don't need to put that on her. I just think that's wrong. Dainty, good to see you, said the judge may very well allow that. It's happened before. Right. I'm concerned. I want to see this documentary. Hey, Hio, it's good to see you. It is, Boomer. Thank you. And thank you for putting it in better terms than I was able to right now. Boomer said that's psychological manipulation of the jury, in my opinion. Absolutely. 100%. Yes. So they're going to mention this documentary pretty soon in the reading of this, and I'm going to write it down and we're going to check it out. Or the circumstances of the execution as used by the Florida Department of Corrections and other similar evidence as described herein. As grounds, Mr. Stearns states, 1. Mr. Stearns is charged with first-degree murder. He is currently facing the death penalty. 2. Defendant seeks to have the jurors be permitted to visit the execution chamber at Florida State Prison, or alternatively, to introduce the video and photographic footage of death row conditions, footage of both the actual electric chair and gurney in which the defendant will be strapped, and or circumstances of the execution as used by the Florida Department of Corrections. Dainty said, but the defense could say the same thing about any crime scene a jury visits. Psychological manipulation. That's true. Darlene said, so his lawyer doesn't want any of the family to give impact statements because it's prejudicial to Stearns, but it's okay to tour the prison. I don't see that happening. They also demand that anything that makes Stephen Stearns look favorable be admitted. They are not wanting them to refer to what happened as murder or the murder scene. They want it referred to as homicide, because homicide means that it takes Stephen away from being the perpetrator of the murder. You know what I mean? Like, if you say Stephen Stearns murdered Madeline Soto, that has a lot more impact than Stephen Stearns committed homicide on Madeline Soto. Like, it's not the same connection. You know what I mean? There's so much. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. 3, this is a capital prosecution, and exacting standards must be met to assure that it is fair. The United States Supreme Court has held, quote, the fundamental respect for humanity underlying the 8th Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment gives rise to special, quote, need for reliability and the determination that death is the appropriate punishment in any capital case. They're saying also that it is cruel and unusual punishment. They're saying the whole death penalty is unconstitutional. Quote. They cite Johnson versus Mississippi from 1988. Good point, quoting Janet. Gardner versus Florida from 1977. Quoting Woodson versus North Carolina from 1976. White J. concurring. 4. Quote. States cannot limit the senator's consideration of any relevant circumstance that could cause it to decline to impose the death penalty, and it must allow it to consider any relevant information offered by the defendant. Unquote. They cite McCliskey versus Kemp from 1987. Number 5, in a death penalty trial, a jury is charged with determining the appropriate punishment for a convicted defendant. The purpose of the presentation of evidence at a death penalty trial is to enable the jury to make an informed judgment as to the propriety of the punishment sought by the state. The law. Cajun, I'm glad you like the heart. Abellis wanted me to make an emoji for Maddie. She actually gave me the idea, and I thought it was cute and appropriate as well. Anders said, but the death row inmates keep appealing it, so it usually takes 25 years before they are executed. Yep. But do you think the jury's going to be told that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Hey, Rhonda. He does deserve the worst punishment there is, Tony. Mrs. O, I don't know since when we protect these people, but they are. Hey, Marilyn. Rhonda said he is not the victim, and he has no shame. Nope. He sure didn't have any shame when he was abusing her. He sure did not. All looks with disfavor upon a sentence imposed, by the way, in ignorance of the facts. Number 6. The law also looks with disfavor on any effort to prevent jury from viewing the death penalty for what it is, the most severe punishment that one human being can possibly met out to another. As the Supreme Court has noted, the, quote, penalty of death is qualitatively different from a sentence of imprisonment, however long. Death in its finality differs more from life imprisonment than a 100-year prison term differs from one of only a year or two. Because Darlene said they get a priest, a last meal, they get to say goodbye to their family. Madeline didn't get none of that. I'm getting mad too, girl, I've been going off about this mess. I have not been a happy camper, let's just say that, because this is a bunch of bull crap. Trying to say my happy words very politely. Abellis, thank you so much for gifting 20 memberships. That was so very sweet and supportive of you. Thank you so much. Those were gifted to True Crime Christy, Amanda, Reap What You Sow. I like that. Before Blessed, Denise, South Philly Lily, Rachel, Lynn, Thomas, Angie, Cindy, CeeLo, Crooked Halo. I like that too. M. Player, Galen, Glenda, Kelly, Loretta, and Vegan Moonchild. I like that name too. If you guys were gifted by Abellis and you are aware that you were gifted, please tell her thank you. And I will jump on this crazy train and come pick y'all up on the way to Speculation Station. Thank you so much, Abellis. That was so sweet. Thank you, Abellis. That was so very sweet of you. Yeah, so abusing a child is not cruel? Like, in any way you look at this, Stephen Stearns will be treated better than he treated Maddie, even when she was alive. So don't even. Stop playing with me, Miss Rachel Vickers. Melissa Because Vickers, of the qualitative difference, there is a corresponding difference in the need for reliability and the determination that death is the appropriate punishment in a specific case, unquote. They cite Woodson versus North Carolina from 1976. Number 7. If the jury returns a sentence of death, the defendant is now subject to execution by lethal injection or electric chair. Various factors related to the manner in which the final hours of the condemned person's life tick away contribute towards juries rendering death sentences while they remain ignorant of the consequences of their determination, thus failing to meet the critical requirement of the reliability of their decision. Potential jurors in capital cases frequently assume that the death penalty is, quote, humanely, unquote, carried out. For this reason, jurors often opt for the death penalty under the erroneous impression that it is either, quote, too good for, unquote, the accused, or is somehow, quote, kinder, unquote, than life imprisonment. 8. This myth. It's too good for the accused or kinder than life imprisonment. But, people that are on death row are guilty of committing a homicide. Most of them. I don't know of any that haven't committed homicide, honestly, off the top of my head. So what about the victim that they murdered, right? Like, That victim was not given a choice. That victim didn't even get the 25 years to appeal the death or whatever that they're going to get. Like that victim, you killed somebody in cold blood. What about the victim? This is about the victim, not the perpetrator. Mrs. O, thank you so much for being a member for 1 month. She said, I love me some AS. I love me some Mrs. O. That was so very sweet. I'm so glad that you've been a member for a month. That's awesome. Thank you for being part of our Speculating family. Misconception is compounded when prosecuting attorneys argue after the defense has completed presentation of the evidence and after the defense argument that death is, quote, easier, unquote, for the accused than it was for the victim, and that the jury... It is. Jury would be, quote, kind, unquote, to impose such a punishment. It is an, quote, elemental due process requirement that a defendant not be sentenced to death on the basis of information which he had no opportunity to deny or explain, unquote. They cite Skipper versus South Carolina from 1986, quoting Gardner versus Florida from, it doesn't say, at 10, Powell and Request, JJ and Berger C.J. concurring. For this reason, the defendant has a constitutional right founded in the 8th Amendment to correct misperceptions shared by jurors or to refute any argument bearing the, quote, kindness, unquote, and, quote, humanity, unquote, of execution that may be made by the prosecutor. Number 9, a view of the physical location where persons in Florida are executed and a description of the actual execution will provide the jury with accurate information upon which they may base their decision as to the propriety of the death. So they're saying that they want an accurate description to be portrayed so that the jurors can see what they're sentencing Mr. Stearns to. And again, we're going to watch this documentary together. Hopefully we can on YouTube. And we're going to see if it's going to accurately portray it or if it's going to be biased. Dainty said, AS, you're about the sweetest person on YouTube. I love how supportive you are of everyone. Well, thank you. You guys are supportive of each other. You're sweet. That was so sweet. Thank you. Marilyn McCrae has been a member for 2 months, and she says, grateful. I am grateful that you are here and that you have been a member for 2 months. You guys are awesome. Rhonda said, she had a crappy mom, in my opinion, who didn't protect her, was hurt by someone who should have protected her, and then unalived. She didn't even have her own bedroom. She was never a priority. I agree. Hey, Rubber. Bad Girl said, Maddie is the victim, not Stinky. Right. I agree. Sentence as a punishment. This court may grant jury views at the trial in order to reach the ends of justice. A view of the necessary consequence of a death sentence will permit the jury to acquire unique knowledge as to the nature of the choice it is compelled by law to make. The view sought has a tendency to make a fact of consequence to the sentencing proceeding, i.e., the propriety of alternative forms of punishment. Mrs. O gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much for that. Those went to Linda, Kay, DG Dunn, Angie, and I see you looking. If you guys were gifted a membership by Mrs. O, please tell her thank you. Thank you, Mrs. O. That was so very sweet and supportive of you. Thank you. I'm going to come pick y'all up on the crazy train on the way to Speculation Station. Thank you so much, Mrs. O. That was so sweet. Orange Rose, it's good to see you. Oh, no. We don't want to do that. Hold on. Just a minute. I saw a comment. Cara said, if the defense doesn't try every avenue possible, the case could be deemed a mistrial due to the fact that he didn't have adequate representation. And that is the only positive thing here. Janet said it's 14 years in Florida. Okay, thank you. That's the only positive I'm getting from all these motions being submitted. Orange Rose says society and the judicial system has gotten way too soft. Everyone is scared to put anyone in their place, even the worst criminals. Society expects everyone to be treated with kid gloves. Shaking my head. Right? I agree. Roxanne said, I had so much fun decorating my daughter's room with her at that age. We had 2-bedroom apartment. Oh, that is so sweet. I'm glad you have that memory. Tony said it's sad because the victims and their families always suffer more than the person who committed the crime does. Exactly. Why are we making it that way? And then just trying to push the boundaries even more with all these motions.
more or less probable than it would be without the same view, since in the absence of any understanding of the conditions of capital imprisonment and the nature of execution by lethal injection, the jury would be ignorant of the punitive nature of the sentence it must consider.
The jury would not have sympathy on giving Stephen Stearns the death penalty if they don't see this documentary or don't view the execution chamber, because we need them to have sympathy for Stephen Stearns, even though he had absolutely none for a 6 to 8 year old child up until the age she was 13.
Number 10, in certain circumstances, photographs and videotapes may be introduced in sentence proceedings as demonstrative evidence in order to establish or rebut a fact relevant to the proceeding. Photographs and videotapes are admissible to place before a jury information that may otherwise be obtained by a view when it is reasonably.
So again, let's talk about photos and videos. How about we talk about the photos and videos you're trying to get thrown out by throwing out the phone evidence? Can we talk about that for a minute? Can those videos and photos be admitted? Can the jury see those videos and photos so they understand what this monster did? We want to throw that out, but we want to admit these photos and videos that show the death chamber and death row. And I guarantee you this documentary is going to make you sympathetic to the person on death row. Guaranteed. We're going to find out.
Certain that the evidence will be of an important aid to the jury in reaching a correct disposition when the probative value is not outweighed by the prejudicial impact. Number 11. Photographs or videotapes of the manner of execution by lethal injection are relevant to this death penalty trial, particularly where the authenticity of reliability of such photographs may be made certain. Alternatively, a documentary videotape entitled, quote, 14 Days in May, unquote, for real, accurately depicting the facts of the final days in the life of a prisoner and the process of his execution exists and is available, and the defense is seeking permission from the documentary filmmaker to present this to the court for evidentiary review.
All right, that's what we wanted. 14 Days in May. That documentary she said it exists and it portrays it in an accurate light. So let's watch this documentary. Hopefully it's here. Yeah, right there. So she said this documentary exists and it portrays the last days of a death row inmate accurately. Okay, so let's watch.
By satellite, this is the Mississippi Network. This is the Delta's first choice for weather information.
Hold on a minute. I've got it on 1.25. I'm gonna slow it down. I do want to tell you again, if my stream disappears, then it's because I got in trouble for playing this documentary. And we'll just come back. And if that happens, we'll have to watch it somewhere else, or you guys can watch it on your free time. But I think we might be able to at least get some kind of sense of how they're going to portray the death chamber and death row at a prison, as Miss Vickers stated, accurately and fairly. Abella said under the jail with both of them. I agree, sweetheart. Rhonda said, I hope the prosecutor reinforces that Maddie was the victim. Where was the sympathy for her? Maybe he was even making money off CSAM. He's despicable. I was not there. I did not see. I do not know. But I have a very high suspicion that he was making money off that CSAM as well, because the amount of photos that he took of her are not for personal use. I don't care what anybody says. Rachel said, that's such crap. The jury will fully understand what they are doing without any of this nonsense, right? They sure will. They sure will. Allie said, I understand defense attorneys have a job to do, but I couldn't sleep at night if I did this. It just makes me sick. Right. And I do want to be part, I understand she's just doing her job. I get it 100%. But you're also playing games, and we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna find out with this documentary. I guarantee you it's biased, and by the end we will all be in tears, upset about how this man was treated when he died.
Information each hour with up-to-date weather scans on WKZB FM Stereo 95.3, serving True, Indianola, Moorhead, Alameda, and the Greater Delta area.
Jeff Baselli was at the state penitentiary at Parchman today and filed this story.
A death row inmate at Parchman is scheduled to die in the gas chamber in 2 weeks. Edward Earl Johnson was convicted of the 1979 shooting death at Walnut Grove Marshall.
First of all, he's scheduled to die in the gas chamber, which they don't even do anymore, if I can recall correctly. I know in Florida State, it is lethal injection or electric chair. They don't even do the gas chambers anymore because it's inhumane. That's the first issue I have.
18 Trest. Johnson's attorneys and the American Civil Liberties Union say they've got a strategy to save the inmate from execution on the 20th of May.
Second issue is this is in 1976. I mean, laws have changed. Prison has changed. The conditions in which inmates are housed has changed significantly. The treatment of inmates have changed significantly. All of you know, I had problems already, and it's been what, 40 seconds?
Ain't nothing but a game. If you need to talk back to me, go to hell, man. Go to hell.
Damn sheriff hollering, go to hell, man, go to hell. And they're working the fields. I don't think they don't work fields anymore. The only time you ever see them is when they're on the side of the road picking up trash. If they do that. I haven't even seen that happen in a couple of years. Yes. But they're doing it to show, I can already tell they're doing it to show that the officers are mean to the inmates, the physical labor the inmates had to do in 1976, and they're going to show an execution in a gas chamber, which isn't even allowed anymore. I'm already mad, y'all. Abella said, in Canada, we don't have the death penalty, but for people like Stearns, hell yeah, he deserves it. His crimes are horrific. Right. Chrissy says, I was growing up in Tacoma during Ted Bundy time. I'm so for the death penalty. Now remember his last victim was 13-year-old girl he grabbed from her school. Yep. They do farmland. So in some places, they do still do farmland stuff. But I mean, you know, to be fair, well, I'm not an inmate and I'm not working in, hey, Bazard, I'm not working in a field, you know, without wanting to, but we all have gardens. Now, no, it's not the same thing as being an inmate and being forced to work in the fields, but we all work in fields too. I mean, it's not the end of the world.
Now get this new grind. Thank you, Paul. I don't need that mouth. Tell me what squad this is. What we like to do. And what we gonna do. All right, what are we? That's what I'm talking about. Snatching on back. Get it clean this time. Get it clean this time. Ain't nothing but a game.
This takes place in Mississippi. Now, I want you to think about Mississippi, 1976, being an inmate on death row, and, you know, the nationality of the people. Let's think about that. I mean, it's already going to paint everything in a bad light, because it was a bad light back then in Mississippi in 1976. A lot of things have changed since 1976, Mississippi. Thank God for that.
This film is about the death penalty in the state of Mississippi and the effect it has on the staff and inmates as time runs out for one 26-year-old man, Edward Earl Johnson. Johnson has been appealing against his sentence for 8 years in the United States.
He's 26. 11 years younger than Stephen Stearns is. So he's portrayed as a very young man just starting his life. That's a big difference. Sarah said they should just play the movie Life with Eddie Murphy. Right. Might as well. Rachel said, I see no problem with having capable inmates working in some capacity, maybe growing vegetables for the community. And I think that's a great thing too. The psychological manipulation of the officers sitting there on horseback yelling, what is it? Not commands. mantras, maybe. It like the military does, where they have you march, and they say things that might be a little bit psychologically manipulative. I don't think they do that anymore. Could you imagine, though? I mean, the civil rights lawsuits that would be brought against people if they, okay, if the officers do what we're going to see in this video, I can almost guarantee you the conditions in the prison, what the officers do in this video, what the inmates are having to go through. If that happened now, there would be a civil rights lawsuit. I can almost guarantee it. Hey, Annette, it's good to see you. I wanted to read. Rhonda said, Stefan has nothing positive to contribute to society. When he's gone, he won't be missed. I don't think that Maddie was his first SA victim either. I hope if he has other victims that they step up. Me too. Me too.
It's courts. He was convicted in 1979 of killing a Mississippi town marshal and the attempted rape of a 60-year-old woman. He has spent...
So he was convicted in 1976. I've got my dates wrong. Either way, it's really, 80s. Still, a lot has changed. Annette said that California uses their prisoners to fight fires. That's really, I think that's pretty cool. Dainty said, true, the federal prisons are different, but that is for each state. Yeah, they're all different. Per state.
Spent the last 8 years on this death row and has always professed his innocence.
Okay, now we're going to go into the fact that he's professing his innocence. That he might not be guilty of this crime, because things like that do happen, unfortunately.
I say we'll meet next Friday. The only thing that might cancel that is if he receives a stay of execution between now and then. So at this point,
Heather said, can the prosecution ask for judge only, or does it have to be both sides? If there was a judge only, the defense wouldn't be able to voice their side, so it wouldn't be fair. You have to have both sides there so they can voice their sides and do their jobs, basically.
point in time, the Attorney General's office still feels very much like the execution will be a go. All of y'all know, that could change right up to midnight, the 20th. I got one last thing to say, and then I'm going to try to start getting ready to get out of here. I will not tolerate one off-color remark by anybody on this staff about the execution. And just because I don't have to look forward to doing my job in this kind of situation doesn't mean that I can't be tolerant of others who perhaps look forward a little more eagerly to doing it. But they can look forward to it and still do it in a professional manner. And
We're having discussions about people who look a little bit too eagerly on imposing a death sentence. People who enjoy that kind of thing, which is absolutely disgusting. But we're already talking about that. Again, first 3 minutes, we're talking about, people who are eager to impose this death sentence and see this person die. We don't want y'all saying anything off color. Stop it.
I assure you, I've never been more serious about a threat that I've made since I've been here. If I hear anything that I don't like from staff of this institution, they are going to answer to me directly and personally. I'm sure I'll be stuck with an action later, but the personnel department will have to clean it up, and that's a promise. I'll get rid of them.
I don't know who looks upon that job eagerly. I mean, if somebody's looking upon that job eagerly, I think they need to be removed, honestly. Rhonda said there's no cure for Stephen Stern's sickness. If a jury sees those photos, he should sentence properly, eye for an eye. Yep. Bad Girl said, but they may not know their victims. Maddie was asleep at times doing it. Yeah, that's really scary thought. Chrissy said, I personally don't think the death penalty is used enough. Anders said, penal servitude might reduce that gang shit in prisons. Yeah, it's a possibility. Tosh said, problem is prisons stopped focusing on rehabilitation and started focusing on profiting from institutionalization. I can't say that word. I tried. But yeah, they profit off of it. People do need to be really rehabilitated. I think that, and they do offer classes and things like that in prisons, which is good. I mean, I do think that they deserve things like that. Absolutely. Dainty Dane said, that's very true, AS. I say ugly things when I'm mad, but I'm not about to stick someone with a needle either. Right. Heather Wells said, our prisons from the big house that work outside are those who are close to parole in the last phase of the full sentence. No bad guys allowed.
Cell 10.
This boy's family did not murder this police officer. This boy's family did not ask for their son to be in this situation.
Already referring to him as this boy. This boy. Remember what I just said about Mississippi in this time period. So again,
they didn't raise him to be in this predicament. And I've done some checking and looking into records and stuff as a matter of curiosity. And this guy isn't from some family of bozos, you know. This guy represents a situation that could happen to anybody. You know, you got some heartbroken parents that spent 7 years trying to figure out what the hell went wrong. We don't execute rapists and armed robbers anymore. And so when we do execute people, we execute people that situationally anybody could find themselves in the same shoes.
I don't agree with that statement. Mrs. O said, I have an issue with citizens having to pay for their food, accommodation, water, electricity, medical tablets, phone privileges, etc. If you look at the jail files where I talked about his commissary, they're charging him, I think, $6 to $8 a day, and that's for his food and things. That's something Florida does that not everybody else does.
You get a bad mixture of booze and bad character, or dope and booze and poor judgment. And my son, your daughter could end up on death row. And by God, that doesn't make me bad. That does not make me bad as a parent. And that means that that family is entitled to a modicum of respect from this department and this institution. I'm going to have it.
So again, I mean, for him to be having that conversation, that tells me that they're disrespecting family members of death row inmates, which is not acceptable. And I mean, for them, okay, let's think about them showing this video, excuse me, again in court. They're going to think, well, God, if I sentence him to death row, I mean, look at all the awful things that could happen. Like, what if it was my child and I go and I'm there for the execution of my child that's committed this horrendous crime, and they're talking about treating me with disrespect. Like all of these things they're trying to put in front of the jury and make them think about.
And I'll tell you why I'm so adamant about that. Because I'm concerned about some of the kind of stuff that I hear rumbling wise about people being upset about not being involved in this, that, and other thing. It's like I said to Don Hocutt and a couple of others of you last night, I worry about people who are eager to stand in line to methodically strap somebody into a chair and kill them.
Again, who the hell is eager to stand in line to strap somebody into a chair and kill them in the gas chamber? Like, this is so biased. This is completely 100% biased. Wow. This is crazy. Darlene said, we have DNA, so the chances of someone innocent getting executed are rare. Thank goodness for that. Mrs. O, I'm so sorry you ever had to deal with something like that. I am too. And yeah, I don't got anything for people that commit offenses like that either. But we're having to tell our men, he's having to tell his men under him, his guards, to not be eager to strap this man in the gas chamber. Then the jury's going to be thinking about, well, God, who's eager to strap people in the death chamber? Already biased.
Tough. I ain't kidding. That was a good move. I think I can get that one done. I know you don't want to do that. Yeah, I want to do that. I like it.
So they're transporting them. I'm assuming, I don't know where they're transporting them. We'll find out. But notice they weren't even playing chess on a table. They didn't even have a daggum table. Like, a lot has changed since this time period. Bazard said, I know this man is long gone, but from another documentary I saw, he isn't that far off about this particular job in death prisons. Unfortunately, there are sadists who get into a position like this. That's insane. That's insane. I don't know how you could ever feel good about something like that. Annette said, I was listening to a podcast and they were saying that if Stearns went to prison in New York or California, he would not survive. Some of them are real dangerous. Oh, yeah. I think it doesn't matter who you use. They would be a little biased. Nightbot is not real. It just drops my links occasionally.
All right, boss.
I'm here, but it might be loud. I'm in my kitchen fixing one of my little something to eat.
Last time I was out here talking with you, I asked you whether or not, if this thing proceeds to the negative conclusion, whether you wanted any medication on the last thing. I asked you to think about that. What do you think?
I didn't get it.
Well, I'm not going to ask you about it anymore, especially since your lawyers.
I couldn't understand what he was saying, but they're talking about medications. I always get a phone call when I'm in here and miss so much unless I replay. Sorry if I missed any comments. Oh, that's okay.
So, not to converse with me. Anything else on your mind? I guess this is going to be the last time you and I talk for a while.
They set the date for me for May 20th to be executed. If I don't get no relief from my review from the United States Supreme Court, I'll be executed. Sometime I'm depressed.
So this was 1987. Let's think about how much prison systems have changed since 1987, especially on how inmates are treated and how executions are carried out. Like, I can almost guarantee that there is a more recent documentary on things like this, and that it's not as biased as this is going to be. There's a reason that they're playing something this old.
All I think about, the funny thing is, I think about a future. Now that might seem kind of crazy. Now what future could I possibly have in knowing that I might supposedly be executed in the next 2 weeks? I can't plan on the future, but I think about the future. And I think about my past. The things I used to do, the people I know, the people that care about me, I think of them. I think of all that.
So it's showing death row right now. It's showing really small prison cells. Annette said, the sad part is Stern's case is that his mom knew what he is and she should have took care of the problem then. I don't think as a parent you ever think that your child will do that. Personally, I could be wrong, but I don't think that she ever thought he would commit this crime. She might have thought he was a little weird or did things that were kind of questionable, but I don't think she ever in a million years would have thought he'd hurt Maddie. Anders said, okay. Tony said, no one forced Stearns to do what he did. He needs to face the consequences, right? And the we need to be focusing on the victim of the crime, not making the perpetrator of the crime the victim.
At the scene of the crime, where Johnson allegedly robbed a 60-year-old woman and killed the local town marshal, an old Buick car was seen. Because Johnson owned a Buick, he was arrested with others and put in front of an identity parade. The woman who was robbed and nearly raped had known Edward Johnson most of his life.
She saw me. She told the investigators.
Okay, so this man, it makes him appear as though he's innocent and was convicted innocently because at this time they didn't have DNA. So he owned a Buick and he was put in front of a woman that knew him all of her life, that she knew all of his life. So of course she's going to pick him out of a lineup, even if he didn't really do this. So they've got someone here that's probably innocent of the crime, going to be committed or going to be put to death, unfortunately. Darlene said, yeah, now they have TVs, tablets, snacks, access to a lot of things. They did have TVs in there, but yeah, it's a lot more bougie than, well, it's not bougie, but there's access to a lot more things than they had back then. Right, Bazard? Rhonda said, sorry, no pity for him. He unalived someone and attempting to SA someone else. What about the victims suffering in their families? Well, it appears this man might not, okay, so think about the time period. 1976 is when he was convicted, and he was convicted because the woman saw a Buick vehicle. He drove a Buick vehicle, and then he was put in a lineup in front of her, and the lady was a 60-year-old woman was asked, do you recognize anybody in this lineup? And she had known this young man all of his life, so of course she's going to say, yeah, I recognize him, even if maybe he didn't commit the crime. So I don't know.
That she knew me and know that I wasn't the one that I broke in her home, because she told her that you weren't. She told me I wasn't.
See, now they're saying the victim said that he wasn't the one who did it, and he's still on death row, which did happen back then.
She said the person who broke in was about my size, but maybe a little heavier and had a full beard. At that time, I don't have no beard, never had one. And after that, they let me go. They picked me up again and said they asked some questions. They asked me about the gun, and they kept badging about the gun. That didn't work, so they asked me would I be willing to take a lie detector test. So like I told them, I ain't did nothing. Yeah, I take it. So I freely, gave them permission. Yeah, I take a lie detector test. So that means they had to take me to Jackson. On the way to Jackson, they pulled over. They told me, "You gonna tell us something that we want to hear? Or you ain't going." They said.
So the cops basically were going to beat the crap out of him and make him admit to something that he didn't do. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't see. I do know things like that did happen back then. But referencing this to the Stearns case and the district attorney, not the district attorney, I'm sorry, the defense attorney wanting the jury to see this, you're portraying a man that there's a 75% chance that he's innocent of the crime that he's on death row for, getting executed in a gas chamber. And you're comparing that, you're wanting the jury to see this and compare that to Stephen Stearns. This is, wow. Miss Sarah said they didn't have the tech back then we have today. Wrongful convictions were far worse, and they are still bad today. Right? I agree. But we know for 100% fact that Stearns did this.
Nigga, all we have to say is that you jumped out the car and ran.
I apologize about that word. I have not seen this documentary. So I'm sorry if that word triggered anybody.
And then I didn't know what to think. I'm 18-year-old. I'm side of the road with nobody around to say anything in my behalf. I mean, it's on a Sunday evening late. I don't know nobody in this area. Nobody's behind me, following me, none of my relatives with me. I got a sheriff and an investigator with me. And they talking crazy, you know. They both white, and I'm
Also, I mean, again, this is going to get into the race thing. But this man was 18 years old when he was convicted. Stearns is 37. Like, this man had a whole life ahead of him. Again, and see, I'm already talking about things like this because it's making me feel sorry for him, which is what the intent is, right?
black in the backseat in Mississippi at that, on the side of the road, and they done told me this. I don't know what to do. It was a choice of, you might say, telling them anything or go ahead and let them, do what they said they were going to do. So what they did then was turn on a tape recorder, and they went over the whole incident in their own words and made me repeat that into the tape recorder.
The officers returned with Johnson to the sheriff's department. Using the tape recording made on the side of the freeway, they wrote out a confession and asked Johnson to sign it.
All I asked, what is it? I ain't signing that.
Now, tell me when a recording made on the side of the freeway would be written out and made to sign. Tell me how that's going to fly in a court of law in this day and age, right? Like Darlene said, this is a whole different situation, and they're wanting to play this for the jury. While they tell them that they can rely on their sense of morality, sympathy, and compassion, they demand all the evidence that makes Stearns look favorable be admitted. They say that nobody can talk about Maddie and the impact her death had on them. They can't refer to it as murder or the murder scene. Like, take all of these things into account while this jury's watching this documentary.
And I don't know what this is. He said, don't worry about what it is. Don't read it. Just sign it. So I signed it. Why? Well, basically, because he told me to sign it, and I was scared. I don't know, but they got me by myself. Nobody knows who I'm at. The last time that my relatives, anybody knew where I was at was I was supposed to be on the way to Jackson, so that's where they thought I was at.
Did you ask for a lawyer?
No, I didn't.
Why
I
not?
don't remember. Really, I didn't know. I didn't know no rights.
See, this would not ever fly today because a civil rights attorney would have helped this man. This is a completely different situation. Unfortunately, these things happened in our past, in our history, and it's absolutely disgusting. It's a completely different situation though. Completely 100% different. Bazard, I'm sorry you've ever had to deal with anything like that. Darlene said Stearns is not being discriminated against, and also he's not innocent. This is ridiculous. Right. Exactly.
When we decided the interstate, nobody didn't read me no rights. When my lawyers tried to attack the confessions, as to how it was obtained, they didn't want to hear that. All they wanted to know was, look, we got it, and that's all that counts. He's guilty. I was guilty before I was convicted and guilty before I even went to trial, And the main part was that a white man was killed, and they have a black man accused of doing it, and they said he done it. And that was it.
Completely different situation. I keep reiterating that. Lori said the problem I see is there's so much corruption with the police and detectives that fitted people up, even transferring DNA. But in Stephen Stearns' case, they've got evidence on his phone. So, right. Unfortunately, we've all heard the horrible words. I know. I'm sorry. Oh, you're just not okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a horrible situation. And unfortunately, like I said, things like this happened back then, but it has no correlation with Stephen Stearns or anything that he's going to be going through.
So you get
Okay. This is they're going to show you how a gas chamber works. Did y'all see that chair? Imagine being a juror, and seeing this chair.
And that was it.
Like somebody that's never been in trouble a day in your life, never been to jail, never been in trouble with the law, never had to visit somebody in jail, right? And you are called to be a juror for this case. That's horrific. And then you see this. The chair with the straps and all of the things, or the gurney with the straps and all of the things, all of that. Like, imagine seeing that. There's no way you would vote for death. They're putting Vaseline on so they can make sure there's no leaks in the gas chamber. Don't freaking, y'all, I can't. That's an animal. I'm not. I can't. They're wanting to watch them execute an animal. Jesus. Y'all, I can't even play that. I will cry. Jesus. They executed that animal. They put that animal in the execution chamber and just executed it. And they want the jury to watch that. Are you freaking kidding me? Y'all. Oh my God.
Intervene before the 20th ever gets here. Scripture talks about him working in mysterious.
I skipped ahead because I can't. I'm not. My whole freaking month will be ruined if I saw some shit like that.
Ways, and so it may never get here. It may get here, and you may have to face it. But I know that what you're saying is that
as Basil comes up to get love
up for tomorrow and then getting down again.
Lord have mercy.
But overall, this is what I think, Campaign. Overall, it's all in the hands of God. It's doubt clouds in at times.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put your trust and your whole heart in God, He erase all that doubt.
Yeah.
And give you a feeling of, you relax. You just don't have no worries.
Y'all, they want the jury to see this shit. It reads, a recent study in the United States found that a black man convicted of killing a white man is over 4 times as likely to receive the death penalty as a white man who had killed a black man. Cracker Jacks, it's good to see you. So they did that to make sure the gas chamber is working effectively, and that's why they put the Vaseline on the windows to make sure there was no leaks, and they wanted to make sure that the gas chamber was working like it's supposed to. But like even that wouldn't be allowed. Thank God. Let's all take a second and thank God for that, and thank God that the gas chamber is no longer a thing. But I mean, Lord have mercy. It is stoic, and I don't want to highlight that, but that's exactly the thought you just had is the same thought that they're going to relate it to. Again, they're going to relate it to World War II. That's why are they using a documentary talking about a gas chamber, which is not used anymore for that reason and others. But, and that's part of it. That's part of their plan. And I'm sorry if this upsets you. I apologize. It's upsetting me. I don't know how much more of it we watch, is depending on how bad it gets. But, and they want the jury to be forced to sit there and watch this documentary. For a man who molested and raped a damn child for 7 years and then murdered her.
10 days ago. Now, I don't believe that really it's all sunk in yet. It couldn't have, because if it all sunk in.
I skipped it, Lori. I couldn't watch it. I would be hysterical.
And I'll probably be done run my head through this wall or something. You know what I'm saying? But I look at it like this. 10 days. Have I ever been this close to death before? I guess I get afraid of time. Yeah, every time I hear a door squeak, I'm looking, you know, I'm wondering. I heard noise banging out there by the gas chamber myself. They bang the door on me. I often look at it, gazing, you might say.
If this gets to be too much, please feel free to leave. Again, it's too much. It is too much. It is too much. And they want the juror to have to watch this. Hey, Kimmy C123.
See, the thing about it, it's been there for the 7 years I've been there. There's nothing new to look at. There's nothing new to look at.
I'm sort of straddling the fence as far as the death penalty is concerned. I don't know, sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. So really, I'm sort of straddling the fence. Something needs to be done for some of the crimes that's committed. But I'm not sure that the death penalty is the answer. I think that if a person can't give a life, why should he be able to take it? I don't know. So I got mixed feelings about it. Regardless of what.
So this man has got mixed feelings about it, saying basically, if you're not going to be able to give the life back you took, then why are we taking their life? Which again is going to play on the jury's emotions.
Whether it's the gas chamber, legal injection, or the electric chair, regardless of the method, you know, it'll take a life. So really, whatever method they use doesn't really make any difference, you know, that's concerned.
One thing common of all of us here is that we have no money. You know, we couldn't afford quality representation, the type of representation that would have made a fair trial.
I wanted to listen to what they're saying as far as talking, and we'll turn it off and we'll go to Micah.
Possible. It takes money to fight the state. The state has all the resources in the world when they're trying to seek a death sentence. They have all the resources at their disposal. 9 times out of 10, we're stuck with an attorney who doesn't even have a moral conviction that the death penalty is wrong. You see?
So he's talking about basically not getting accurate representation, which did happen and, you know, still does, especially with a public defender. A public defender is hired by the public to basically represent you, and some of them are corrupt. Some of them do horrible things and don't represent like they're supposed to. And thank God that we have a justice system now that can go back and fight for somebody who's not represented correctly. I'm done with that. I'm not watching it. Y'all, if anybody wants to watch it, it's called 14 Days in May. It's referenced in the documents that they submitted, the motions they submitted to happen in the Stearns trial. And y'all that's just completely unacceptable on so many grounds. It's horrific. I get madder by the second at the fact that they want to play that. Y'all feel free to check it out. I'm done with it. I'm not even going to continue that. That was just horrendous. And I can't believe that they're trying to make a jury have to sit through that. That's absolutely disgraceful. Especially considering that the two perpetrators or supposed perpetrators, victims of the death penalty, are not even closely correlated. Some do, Jenny Jen. Some do. Some public defenders do work better than private firms. Some do. Some don't. So we're going to switch topics now because I've talked about Micah Miller and that case before. We're going to talk about this new lawsuit that Pastor John Paul Jones is accused of raping a 15-year-old in an explosive lawsuit. They basically said he used that church that he preached at as a sexual playground.
Embattled Pastor John.
So he's been getting in trouble with the law and stuff lately ever since his young wife, Micah, unalived herself. He is the preacher of a church in Myrtle Beach. I'm sure they'll give us a recap.
Embattled Pastor John-Paul Miller, who already made headlines after his estranged wife Micah died last year, has just been accused of sexually assaulting a 15-year-old in a bombshell new lawsuit. And this comes as he's already filed lawsuits of his own against protesters, as well as allegations that he tried to bribe one of the people he was suing.
Are you Jackie? Cracker Jacks? Annette, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. If you ever need to talk to me, I'm so sorry. That's a hard thing. If you ever need to talk to me, please feel free to email me. Abella said Stearns tortured a child for years and then killed her. There is zero doubt about that. So work with that defense. I cannot believe, y'all, I can't believe they want the jury to watch that documentary that we as YouTubers, me as somebody who has been to jail, not on death row, thank God, Lord heaven forbid, but who has been in the prison, not prison either, in the county jail before, I can't even watch it. Like most of the public can't even watch it. But we want to throw out all the evidence on Stern's cell phone. Keep that in mind. All the pictures and videos on his cell phone of what he actually did, we want that thrown out. But we want to actually force the jury to watch every minute of that documentary that I just pulled up. My good God.
There is clearly a lot to discuss here, and we're going to bring on the former attorney for Micah Miller, who represents some of the parties here, to get more insight into what's going on. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
No doubt about it. Yeah, thank God.
What an update we have for you in the continuing story of John-Paul Miller. Now, we know that this South Carolina pastor really was thrust into the national spotlight after the death of his wife, Micah Miller, back on April 27th, 2024. She was found dead from what authorities have confirmed was a self-inflicted gunshot wound in Lumber River State Park. It's about an hour away from Myrtle Beach, where the couple had lived. But on that day, her whereabouts, they were captured on security cameras as she was seen leaving the home, going to a pawn shop.
So they say she did it to herself, Darlene, but I think the FBI is involved in the case. I know that. They say there was bruising on her hand that made it look like somebody could have grabbed the firearm and made her do it, or that it could be bruising from her clenching her hands very tightly and praying. That was the last I heard about the case, about whether Micah Miller did it herself or not. There's been a lot of protest from her family demanding justice, because there's a lot about this case that's questionable. That man had that woman doing horrific things, and we've talked about it in the past.
Buying a weapon, going to a gas station, and then in her final moments of life, Micah made this harrowing 911 phone call.
Robeson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
Let me see. You don't know where you're at?
At National Park.
Tell me what's happened.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am. Just listen to what I'm saying, okay?
Now, she supposedly did this in a car, but was found in the river. Actually, her body was laying opposite of the way the river would flow. Like, her car was way far upstream. Her body was found way further down the stream or up the stream. And it's not like the river, like she was deceased and in the river and her body flowed down. because it's going the opposite way. There's a lot questionable about her death, even though she made this 911 call.
Let me make sure I got the exact location where you're at, okay? Just 1 minute.
And also during that call, Micah asked if her phone could be tracked so that her family would know where to find her. And she abruptly hung up that call. Attempts to reach her again were unsuccessful, and she died. And after her body was discovered, investigators located Micah's car, and inside they found a Sig Sauer handgun case in the passenger seat, a box of ammunition in the center console. There were receipts that were also discovered that corroborated the timeline of her movements that day. And just a few hours later, the Sig Sauer was found in the water, and authorities were able to match the weapon's serial number to the box that was found in Micah's car. Now, at the time of her death, it wasn't immediately known what her cause of death was. The medical examiner's office would release their findings just a few days later. But nonetheless, just one day after the shocking news of her passing, Pastor John Paul Miller, the estranged husband of Micah, made this announcement to the congregation of Solid Rock Church.
Now, this is absolutely disgusting, the way he announces it. It is absolutely, I don't know. It's weird. This dude is weird. I don't like him. And then you find out that all of the other shit that happened. I'm glad they're giving a recap.
I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And yeah, and it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her.
And as arguably strange as that is, and it was reported that he told congregants not to talk about Micah's death, to be clear, authorities have confirmed that he was not involved in Micah's death, that he was hundreds of miles away in Charleston at the time that Micah died. And there was no indication that he is being investigated or was investigated in direct connection with Micah's death. However, her family, her friends, many who have been following this story believe there is more here, that Micah wouldn't have done this. And what has surfaced is an investigation into Micah's life with John Paul and allegations of abuse. They have surfaced both by Micah and also alarming allegations put forward by his ex-wife, Allison Williams. But more specifically with Micah, based on a police report.
Now, I had that police report and I read it. He got involved. Micah was a babysitter for him. She babysat the children that he had with his first wife. And he got involved with her at the church when she was underage.
She had apparently indicated that she was groomed by John Paul Miller since 10 years old when she worked for him at the church. And at the time of her death, they were estranged. She had tried to separate from him. But when police had contacted John Paul, this is important, he told them that Micah suffered from mental health disorders, saying she, quote, spends large amounts of money when she stops taking her prescribed medication, and that he took the car away from her so she wouldn't sell it. And his attorney, Russell Long, released a statement at the time saying, following the untimely death of Micah Miller, unfounded rumors and false accusations began circulating on social media.
These aren't unfounded. They're documents and things that she put on the computer and things that she wrote out. And I think he was convicted or found that he was embezzling money from the church, if I remember correctly.
And in various media outlets suggesting Pastor Miller's involvement in her demise. This created a buzz, causing local and national media outlets to begin proliferating these falsehoods on a mammoth proportion. Our client refutes any report that suggests he ever abused his wife. Recent reports claim that Pastor Miller groomed his wife from the age of 10 years old. Couldn't be farther from the truth.
Hey, Sarah, how are you?
Hey there, I'm doing good. I'm on lunch, and this wrecked me because, like, the pain this woman showed in her videos and stuff, you could feel it. Like, if you've ever been in that type of relationship, and I was in a similar relationship, obviously you don't know the ins and the outs completely, but, if you've ever been through that, you absolutely know what it's like to be at your lowest point like that. And it's like I'm on the fence if it was some kind of, conspiracy. But if she actually did it, to herself willingly, it's like, some of us understand what that's like to be in that situation. And thankfully, I'm still here, we're still here and everything, but it's
Thank
like,
God.
holy crap,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear about that.
No, it's okay. You know what? I have come a long way. I've grown. I've healed a lot. I've done a lot of self work. And that's one of the reasons why I'm getting into psychology because, especially forensic psychology, is to try to figure this kind of stuff out in, the victims, that what they go through, and the abusers and the perpetrators and everything, and what their way of thinking and why they do things the way they do. It's like it changed me, but I think what everything happens for a reason, even bad things. And thankfully I'm better now.
That's good.
I'm glad you're
Absolutely.
better. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
glad that you're not dealing with that anymore.
Not to the extent, for sure.
Well, because I was gonna say I always had a theory about this particular case, even in the earlier stages, where I was like, well, even if he wasn't there, couldn't it have been like he abused her so much that he finally just be like, go do it, and then she just finally did it. So it's like, in a way, you can still say he could have
Yeah.
allegedly caused her death from all the abuse, and then just do it.
Oh, absolutely. The abuse, I do feel, contributed to, her taking her life, if that's truly what happened. He was a very big coercive controller from, the evidence and everything that, her recordings and her journals and what her friends and family had to say, coercive control. It's such a long game, and it's a dangerous game for these abusers to play because they're patient, and it's like it's a way of grooming and brainwashing. And a lot of people don't understand it because when we think abuse, we think physical, we think bruises, we think scars physically, but the emotional, the mental, the psychological, it is just as harmful, if not more so, because, when you are just so knocked down, because, thankfully, I was never physically abused by my ex, but you know what I mean? It was just like the mind, the way he would screw with my mind and everything. And, thankfully I was able to wake up, realize what was happening and get my ass out of that situation. But it took a lot of therapy, a lot of self work. You really have to work at it. It's not just gonna go away.
Yeah. It's
No, you're
hard.
right.
Yeah. It's very hard. And I'm glad that you were able to do that and get away from that situation. I was in a bad situation, and I used to say from a very young age, and I used to say he stuck it's like, the only way I know how to describe it is like they stick their hand like in your brain and like rearrange it. He used to like, so I know what you're saying. It's hard, and I think that the psychological and emotional abuse is worse than the physical too. Personally.
It absolutely can be, yeah. And it's, it takes years to recover from, because, that kind of thing, it rewires your brain. You're constantly in flight mode. It's like you constantly got that cortisol pumping through your body, and you're constantly on edge, and you don't know what's going to happen. And you might make spontaneous decisions to, God forbid, hurt yourself or worse. And you're not thinking with your, as much logic as you are impulse and emotion, because it's like that part of your brain that's affected, it swells, and that's like your primal instincts. And it's like you're not logical, and our humanness that's one of the things that makes us human, is being able to logic and reason.
Yeah.
And everything. And that part of our brain is less effective when this happens to people. And it's just one of those things that, thank God for therapy and everything like that, because that rewires you're back to normal, as much as you can go.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you and everything you're doing with your school and that you're out of that situation. You're such an awesome person.
Thanks, love. You are amazing too. We have an amazing group here, man. I
We
love
do.
all you guys. Like, I'm
Aw.
not one to throw around love. I love you guys, but we're a good group. Everybody respects one another, and we're just so kind and heartfelt and everything like that. We're always rooting for one another and there for one another, and you don't find that on these YouTube streets as much.
Yeah.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna play some of this. If y'all want me to pause, just let me know.
Right.
This is obviously an explosive lawsuit that we're talking about in the John Paul Miller case. And when you think about litigation, when you think about personal injury stories in particular, I've said it before, I'll say it again, having a great attorney in your corner is so important. And that is why I want to shout out Morgan & Morgan, America's
They're gonna
largest
do an ad. Hold
personal
on.
injury
Yeah,
law firm,
they
our great
always do.
partner and sponsor. I mean, they
I should have known.
start a claim from your phone in just 8
So it's like
clicks.
the
So if you're
beginning.
injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LCC.
Sorry, sweetheart. What'd you say?
It's always like sort of the beginning of the video, and then they'll do like the main video
Oh yeah, yeah,
when it comes to the ads. Yeah.
Sidebar.
yeah.
They always got to sneak them in somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Morgan & Morgan.
With all of that in mind, particularly the allegation that he groomed Micah when she was 10 years old, now we got to talk about the major updates. So first up, we have this bombshell lawsuit that was filed by an unnamed Jane Doe against John Paul Miller, his father, Reginald Wayne Miller, Solid Rock Ministries, and All Nations Cathedral Church, where Reginald was head pastor. Now, this was filed out in South Carolina, and she claims that John Paul Miller raped her when she was just 15 years old, and this was back in 1998. And then she claims he sexually assaulted her again in 2023. Now, I'm going to get into the specific claims in a little bit, but let me just read you the opening paragraph of this complaint. It reads, quote,
That Solid Rock Church, Micah Miller had evidence on her computer where he was embezzling money, and supposedly she went to the cops in the town and they didn't do anything about it. He was stalking her when she would go to the gas station and things like that. He had a tracker on her car, and supposedly she went to the cops with that too. And again, they did nothing. And
Yeah, they didn't take
I
her
was talking.
seriously.
Yeah. And I think that there's a correlation because if it's a big, well-known church in the area, of course, the policemen
Right.
and their families are going to be very involved in the church and all of that. Think about all of the community things the church does. They're very much involved with the politics of the town. And I think that there's a correlation between Pastor John Paul Jones being the pastor of that church and the police not helping Micah Miller. That's my personal thought on that.
Right. And I'm not going to say every church matters, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whatever. Like, but it's not with this kind of like an allegation. Is not that unsurprising. And in actual cases, it's not that unsurprising to be like, yeah, I can see the pastor doing some crap like that. I mean, it's kind of like in the Black community churches. Not all of them, but there are certain numbers of them where the pastor's pretty much becoming like a little mini king out of the community.
They are very well. A lot of them are very respected because religion for some people, it's like their life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is great.
Mhm.
You do you. I'm more spiritual than I am religious, which everybody's got their preference. But it's like when people are that very religious, their pastor is like, I don't want to say God, but the next
Right.
step before God.
Yep.
So and it's like,
Especially when you talk about children growing up in that church and things like that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, love.
I mean,
Good.
that's okay. Yeah, it gets ingrained into their life and their culture, and it's just it's just what they know, and that's fine as long as people are not being crappy people. I say I don't care what you do, what you worship, whom you worship, as long as you don't hurt people, and that's when it starts getting dark, because a lot of these pastors or priests or what have you, like my great uncle was a Catholic priest and he was a cool guy. Like I don't think he was involved in any of the scandalous stuff. He was a genuinely awesome dude, but like some of these people let their power go to their head, and it's like they start doing dark things and getting culty, and look at Jim Jones. That was a Christian based religion. They were Christian based, but he got all culty on them, and we know what happened to Jonestown.
Yeah.
Because it all went to his head. I think a lot of these people, like politicians, for example, religious leaders, most of them start out with good intentions, but stuff goes to their head. They get money waved in front of their face, stuff gets twisted, and they feel the power, and they like get addicted to it, and they're like, I'm untouchable, I can do what I want, kind of thing. I can be with this underage girl and nobody's gonna say anything to me, kind of thing. It's gross.
That's another thing that I have noticed, and then, like I said, it's not like a Christian thing because I'm an agnostic, but I grew up in a Baptist lifestyle years ago. But I just noticed in all these different cases when it comes to like these religious leaders, they're always some weird sexual thing, and that's always been something I've noticed for years too, with a lot of stuff, but especially with religious aspect, there's always some weird sexual stuff. And now you got this, with this pastor, which I'm not surprised, like with this allegation.
It's power, you know what I mean? Like sex is power for some people, and it's like when you take away the power of sexual stuff, and you don't treat it as something, when it's between two people that love each other, that's perfectly fine. Two loving adults, throw that out there. But when you start using it as a power move, and you're using it as part of your religion, and it starts becoming, like a big deal, like that's when it starts really causing issues, is when you let the balance. It's all about balance with this stuff.
Yeah.
And stuff starts going off balance because of the power struggle with the leaders. And it's like, that's when it all goes to hell. And, I think Micah really was a beautiful person, and she saw this man and thought he had good intentions, and he was, he's a scumbag. He's a very narcissistic personality type person. He's a very, very, he's got to be the center of attention, very, grandiose personality kind of shit. I'm just throwing these terms out there, but I can't, obviously I'm not diagnosing, but it's just from what I see, he's got very like, he thinks he's like the next best thing next to God.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would never, if my partner or whatever, passed away, maybe allegedly of self-harm, I'm not going to go out in front of a bunch of people and be like, she or they had mental health issues and they killed themselves, but we're not going to talk about it. Like,
yeah, I was sick.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, wow, that's weird.
Pretty sure I raged out when the stuff first came out. I'm like, oh hell no, like no freaking way, because that's just because you see the signs. Like I said, I've been through it. I see the signs, and it's gross. And there needs to be laws that actually, and I think they're working on it. Like the UK has gotten better. Like she's a podcaster, but she used to work for New Scotland Yard, Laura Richards. She's helped get laws passed in the UK, and I think she's trying to work on it here too, because I think she lives in California now. But you know what I mean? It's like there needs to be more awareness, and these horrible things, if anything good comes out of them, there needs to be, it's awareness. So I have to hop down and go back to work, unfortunately, but I will be I don't know how busy we're going to be, but I'll keep an eye on chat. You guys, you're the best.
Be safe at work.
She's so smart.
She
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah, and in order to be a pastor, to be up there has to be some form of narcissism and needing to be the center of attention, especially when
Oh
she was
yeah.
talking about the addiction to the power and the sexual aspect of it. Every time I think about that awful person, Warren Jeffs, and the community that he was a part of, it is so easy to
Yep.
manipulate that and let the power of it go to your head, especially
And
in that kind of community. And it's sick that these people would use these girls and these women and their situation for that. It's
oh yeah.
absolutely disgusting.
And then how they also treat the boys too, or young men, where it's like
Yep.
they cast them out as
Yep.
competition for the older men,
Yep, there was a lot of that going on, and unfortunately, some of the boys did what Micah Miller did because they were abused and they couldn't deal
Yep.
with it. And then in
Mhm.
those communities, it's like if you leave to try to get away from it, you're banished from your whole family. Your whole family can't even talk to you
Mhm.
anymore. It's
Well, that's why, like, for me, like I said, I'm not gonna get too religious. I know how that could be with people, but as someone that's agnostic, for me at least, it's like I do believe in higher power. It's just in how I take it and how I personally believe it, and I don't allow myself to be uh, put like in a box, in a sense, like, oh, I
yeah.
have to do this and that. So
What we do every Sunday night, we'll watch a Bible story or talk about. We've been doing a lot of. We like to do the like where they go to Iraq and all those places and show you like they have
okay.
where they have like Babylon. They have some of the sulfur. There's sulfur pellets in the ground that were on fire.
Mhm.
And like we saw Jacob's well and all of the places. We'll talk about that kind of stuff. We'll talk about Bible stories. We just kind of do it here at home because that way we don't. Number one, a lot of these churches, like where he was at, you have real bad with like it's real bad with people judging you and being
Mhm.
holier than thou on Sunday, but Monday they're going to the strip club. I can't stand that.
Yeah, yeah,
I, I can't
yeah.
do it. And the judging of people, and then you also don't. It's not as you don't run the risk of getting trapped into somebody or something that you think is leading you on the right path and they're not. It's
Exactly.
less of a chance of that happening if you just do it at home. Like God said, you can get saved in your closet by yourself.
Hmm.
So,
That's how I take it.
yeah. I appreciate y'all coming up. Y'all always have such good insight. Thank you guys for that. And thank you,
Oh yeah.
Sarah.
It's been a minute since I've been on, just work and all that. But no, it's good to be on I'll be on for a little bit longer and then have to head out.
Okay. All right. I hope your work's been going good.
Oh, it's good. Just a lot of workload. I've been picking up extra shifts.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
For years, John Paul Miller and Reginald Wayne Miller, also known as Reginald Wayne Miller, have presented themselves as devout religious leaders. They built their reputations in the Myrtle Beach community and beyond as men of faith, dedicated to spreading God's word and training future church leaders. But this image was a lie. Behind the religious facade, John Paul Miller and Reginald Wayne Miller engaged in sexual abuse and predatory conduct, often targeting minors. They use their positions of power to manipulate and exploit vulnerable victims while concealing their actions from the public. Upon information and belief, this deception has shielded them from law enforcement scrutiny, allowing their misconduct to continue unchecked.
So that goes back to basically everything we were just talking about with the police in the town being members of the church and then keeping it from the public, making it possible for them to not get in trouble for it. And if his father was doing it, it's a learned behavior. He
Right.
learned it.
Sins of the
Sort of.
father, sins of the father, and now, well, the son.
Yep. Yep. And they're still running this church. I think John Paul was still the pastor at the church, even though the FBI was investigating him, if I remember correctly.
Well, yeah, for the last time I kind of paid attention to the case, yeah.
It's crazy.
Not
She
surprising.
claims upon information and belief she doesn't really have the definitive proof of that.
Sorry, love, I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah, it's not surprising. Because again, I mean, talking about the cult-like mentality that they get. That's their pastor. That's their man. You know?
You can do no wrong.
Yep.
that,
Hey,
but it's
Pam.
something that's based on what she's seen, based on what she's been told. She believes that to be true, but this is something that she will probably try to get more evidence about during the course of the litigation. And the reasons, by the way, the entities and Reginald are on the hook too is because Jane Doe alleges that these religious institutions had a duty to ensure that their employees or agents would not exploit or abuse children. And according to her, they failed. Quote, these institutions were not created to only serve God, but to further Miller and John Paul Miller's predatory behavior. The churches and the related entities operated without adequate protections for minors, creating an environment where abuse could thrive. Upon information and belief, this was not accidental. It was part of a calculated plan to groom victims while simultaneously gaining the community's trust and financial support.
That is a really impactful statement because it happens more than anyone wants to admit. They are grooming children while simultaneously gaining the community's trust and financial support.
So then it'd be harder for when the victims do come out, it'd be like, what? No, there's no way our pastor or imam or I'm trying to think for the Jewish
Rabbi.
whatever it is. Rabbi. Wow, I couldn't remember that. But anyway, it's like rabbi. But yeah, it's like there's no way, especially with I have some I used to have a Hasidic Jew friend. Wow, I couldn't even say that. And he would tell me that there was a lot of predatory rabbis in their community, which I'm not shocked by that.
Yeah, I think it's in every community. I mean, the Catholic Church is unfortunately known for it, and of course that I'm not saying all of them are. And it gives everyone a bad name. It's sad that these people get these positions of power and do things like that because it creates a darkness around people that are even good. We watch, like I was saying for church, there's a rabbi that we watch sometimes, and he's really awesome. And then, there's ones out there that are talking about, horrible things about, it's damning. And it's sad because these people look at these religious leaders for leadership and a closeness to God or, their preferred person. And they're leading them astray and they don't even realize it. It's so sad.
RWM, this is again Reginald, had personally engaged in sexual misconduct before 1998. He knew his son was engaging in sexual misconduct. This was the proverbial fox guarding the henhouse. RWM did not institute any type of safeguard over the dangers posed by JPM, or RWM had complete control over the church by virtue of the bylaws, which left him in complete control of the church without any oversight by anyone else. Though he was in control, there were other leaders of the church who could have intervened to protect minors at the church.
They did not, is the next statement. And that goes back to the king mentality. Like, this is their person that speaks to them, that speaks to God. So therefore he can do no wrong.
And then the people like the deacons or second in commands and even the chain of command, they just go along with it. Or if they do know, they feel like they can't question it because then they'll get ostracized or something bad could happen to them or their family.
Yep.
They did not. They ceded complete control to RWM, who allowed his son, JPM, to have free reign over the church and the minors of the church. This church was JPM's sexual playground. Leadership at the church, including RWM, could have undertaken something to protect the minors at the church from JPM and any other predator, including RWM. They did not. And here there is a mention of Micah Miller. Recently, the death of John Paul Miller's ex-wife, Micah Frances Miller, has once again drawn attention to both John Paul Miller and Reginald Wayne Miller. Micah Frances Miller's relationship with John Paul Miller was deeply troubled. Upon information and belief, it exemplified the power and control he exercised over women in the church. The defendants, both individually and together, have built, maintained, and concealed a system of sexual misconduct that harmed numerous minors, including plaintiff Jane Doe number 1.
And how, I mean, you're part of a church, your family Can we not? Thanks. Your family grows up in the church. Your children are in the church. And you're letting them go to youth meetings and be part of the church thinking they're being brought up with good Christian values and then find out they're being abused. Could you imagine?
So to me, so he looks like he's at least several years older than me. Like I said, I'm in my early 30s, and he looks like probably a little bit above that. But so it sounds like he was already being a predator. What, in his teenage-ish years? Almost,
Yeah.
at least by the 98. Yeah. So can you just imagine the decades he's just been going on and on doing crap like that?
Lord have mercy. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
If he was that young doing it, yeah. And his dad, of course, was either involved in it too.
Yeah, that's even scarier. What if him and his dad were doing stuff together? Jesus.
No, just we just have I said, there's so many sickles in our world, and let alone our country. But it's just like, yeah, there's so many sickles.
Mm-hmm. And the victims are even more victimized because it's the person who talks to God. I mean, could you, again, the power aspect of it, you try to tell your parents or members of the church and you're looked down upon. They judge you as a liar. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just a horrible situation.
And this is why I'm not when I was younger, I maybe a little bit more off-puttish, thank you, of like conspiracy-ish sort of stuff. And it's like, well, now as I got older, it's like, you know what? I would not be surprised if it was like a good old boy system with his church, or the example with the judge that got killed by the sheriff. Like when you look into that kind of stuff, like, yeah, I'm not surprised, because conspiracy just means is a bunch of people involved in a certain criminal or certain act. You know, so it's like, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, conspiracy theories turn out to be true, and it'll surprise you.
Almost like I would say 50%. It's like, yeah, it's like 50% it became true. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so now let's get into the alleged incidents here. So we're going to first start with the one from 1998. Again, when she says she was just 15 years old and JP was apparently 19. Quote, on or about July 19th, 1998, a Sunday morning. So very specific. Actually, what you're about to hear is a lot of specific.
So, yeah, and he said they're very specific. So that makes it, I mean, when something like that happens, you can recall everything. I can recall everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can remember smells and everything you saw, everything, the room, all of it. So that makes it more believable. And the fact that he's 19 and he supposedly like just raped this girl who was 15. I mean, again, that tells me that he had been doing it before then too, if he's got enough brazen to go all the way and just rape her instead of grooming her and making her feel like, that she wanted it or whatever. You know what I mean?
In the way I'm thinking about, well, I'll wait until it plays, but I'm guessing he probably knew that maybe he was attractive pastor's son or kid, that whole, and he probably used that against her, and then he raped, allegedly, raped her.
Yep. That is used a lot. I didn't even think about that.
I'm assuming that that's just, I'll wait until it talks more, but I think that's probably what happened.
Yeah, probably.
Plaintiff attended Cathedral, formerly All Nations Church. Plaintiff initially intended to attend Sunday school with her grandmother, but changed her mind and instead went to the church building where she intended on going to her grandfather's Sunday school class. The classes had begun and the doors were shut, and Jane Doe number 1 wasn't aware which room he was in, so instead of interrupting classes, she entered the main church sanctuary. JPM was playing the piano, and another band member was strumming a guitar. Upon noticing plaintiff, JPM engaged her in conversation. At some point, plaintiff stepped away from the sanctuary and walked down the hall to the restroom. When plaintiff exited the restroom, she encountered JPM standing near his father's office door. JPM called out plaintiff's name and initiated a seemingly innocent conversation, inquiring about a mutual friend's recent absence from church. Without warning, JPM forced plaintiff inside his father's office, shutting the door behind him. JPM immediately became aggressive, physically overpowering plaintiff and forcing her against the wall. Despite plaintiff's struggles and verbal pleas for him to stop, JPM ignored her and forcibly moved her out of the office, down the hallway, and to a door that led outside to a grassy side yard of the church where JPM's truck was parked. JPM then forced Jane Doe number 1 into his truck, and that is where he raped her. At the time of the assault, plaintiff was a virgin, and she claims afterward that she was filled with shock, shame, fear that she suffered from the...
Jesus.
Wow. So he kind of did
That
do
is
what I
crazy.
thought a little bit. Yeah. Wow. Mm.
Poor girl. What a mercy.
Mm.
And it goes with his style too. If you look at some of the things he tried to make Micah Miller do and some of the shit he put her through, it goes with, I mean, it goes with his, yeah.
MO. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. MO. Much better term. I appreciate that.
From the effects of trauma, depression, that she claims she repressed what happened to her until 2023 when she claims she was assaulted by John Paul again. So this actually is important. It goes to the idea of why didn't you report this earlier? So the complaint explains that at the time, John Paul in 2023, he was this high-ranking pastor, and she ended up running into him in Myrtle Beach while she was with a friend. And the complaint reads, despite being in a public setting, JPM leaned into Jane Doe number 1 as if to hug her and shoved his hand down her pants, touching her genitals without consent.
Oh my God.
Plaintiff immediately recoiled and tried to brush it off and moved his hand because she didn't think her friend noticed and she was scared. About 30 minutes later, Jane Doe number 1 and JPM had a heated argument about him using the title of pastor and using scripture to justify sexual misconduct. In response, JPM...
See? He's using the religion as a manipulation to justify what he did. Jesus.
Not surprised. Wow.
That's
I'm even
horrible.
looking at that. No man is without sin. Oh yeah, that's such a good excuse. Well, I'm a man. I sin, so God will forgive me.
Yeah, no man is without sin and temptation. God understands that. Jesus.
Yeah, it's guys like that that make it really hard for a lot of normal guys like me and everyone else that I know of. That's it's like, wow, thank you guys, thank you.
These sick, depraved individuals. They need to go somewhere else. Those of you that had to leave, if you're still here, I understand and I completely get it.
PM cited scripture telling plaintiff, no man is without sin and temptation. God understands that. And she explains that shortly after this alleged assault is when she found out that Micah died. Now, she is suing under 5 causes of action here. So first up, negligence, gross negligence, and recklessness, namely that the defendants had a duty to prevent Jane Doe from suffering harm at the church, especially according to Jane Doe, when Reginald and others knew the danger that John Paul presented, and yet John Paul ended up exploiting and assaulting her. That's the allegation. In other words, they failed to protect her from foreseeable harm. Foreseeability is a huge component in negligence cases. And there was also a failure to implement a system of protection or train employees or warn of the known dangers and so forth. Second, we have a claim for civil conspiracy. So namely that all the defendants...
I get that. I mean, and I can understand that. And I think that it's probable because it was evidently known and just kind of hushed and kept silent, and people should have been aware.
Yeah. Wow.
Engaged in a deliberate, concerted effort to conceal, suppress, and enable the alleged sexual misconduct of John Paul Miller, including allowing him to maintain a leadership position, refusing to report him, and suppressing evidence against him from coming out. That's the allegation in point 2. Third is for assault and battery. So assault, meaning John Paul allegedly threatened and intended to harm Jane Doe on multiple occasions. And the battery is that he allegedly inappropriately touched and violated her. 4, we have the claims that all the defendants recklessly or intentionally inflicted severe emotional distress on Jane Doe, that this conduct was extreme and outrageous. And then finally, we have 5, violation of the South Carolina Unfair Trade Practices Act. So the argument here is that the defendants misrepresented themselves to the public as organizations that provide a safe and nurturing environment for children, when, according to her, in reality, they are not. That they created a false impression that they have the proper procedures in place to protect children, but they don't. In other words, the allegation is that this is deceptive business practices. And she is suing for a whole wide variety of different kinds of damages here. Now, one more thing I have to mention in this lawsuit is an accompanying affidavit. So as Jane Doe claims in the complaint, quote, in her sworn affidavit, Susan Miller, so this is RWM's ex-wife, Reginald Miller.
So this is John Paul's mother, I'm assuming? This is very heartbreaking, Pamela, and I'm so sorry for Micah and her family.
Okay, so yeah, it's his ex-wife. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I had to get the kids.
Because I was like, was it?
Miller's
Oh no,
ex-wife.
I was thinking. I was just
Sorry,
gonna
love,
say,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, was it his dad's mom? That's what I thought at first. I was like, wait, is this his dad's mom is making a complaint?
Yeah, I think it's his dad's ex-wife, because John Paul is JPM. Ronald is his dad, and it's RWM, so it's his dad.
Okay.
Detailed how RWM physically and emotionally abused his family and exercised absolute control over both his household and his church congregation.
So it's a generational thing again.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because he probably learned from his dad. So yeah.
And when you read that apparent affidavit from Susan Miller from 2001, she claims, amongst other things, that Reginald, her husband, didn't love her as much as she loved him, that he didn't want to be intimate with her, calling her too fat and, quote, not a turn on, that he physically beat John Paul Miller with a leather belt when he was just 5 or 6 years old.
This is all very personal.
And how there were reports that Reginald had made sexual advances towards men. Now, obviously,
Lord, have mercy.
You know what? I'll keep that to where it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not shocked.
Development, right? And
Unfortunately, it's not shocking, and it should be. It should be. It should shock us more than it does. And then you've got this man growing up, this young boy growing up wanting to be like his father, and his father's this sick individual. Generational bullshit.
Yep. Jeez. Whew.
In this story. But I will tell you, it is also a significant development in that John Paul Miller is already engaged in a lot of litigation right now. One thing we haven't talked about is that he filed 20 separate lawsuits against people who he says are demonstrating or demonstrated outside of his former church, Solid Rock Church, after Micah's death. These are people calling for justice for Micah. And he apparently...
So these are the protesters calling for justice. So he's suing all of them. He come up and smacked somebody's hat and went to jail for it.
Yeah, how are you gonna? That doesn't make sense. How are you gonna sue protest? Like they're not like if they're not in the church and they're outside just protesting. How are you gonna sue them? You know.
Yep, I don't see it going anywhere.
He sued all of these people for claims of invasion of privacy and defamation. However, according to South Carolina court records, 6 of those cases were dismissed. And on February 20th, John Paul Miller, who is apparently representing himself, offered to drop the cases if the defendants agree to stay 500 feet away from his new church. This is according.
So he's got a new church. He's representing himself and agreed to drop the cases as long as they stayed 500 feet away, which they probably were when they were protesting.
That's what I'm like. Yeah, they were like either, I mean, like maybe across the street, maybe even on the sidewalk. So I mean, you can still protest on the sidewalk. You're not inside the building and everything.
Yeah.
And he's gonna represent himself. That's well, Sarah and I and you have been talking. Mm-hmm.
That's already, I mean, again, the narcissism and the need to be center of attention. And that's the worst move you can make. When you go in and represent yourself, you're saying you've got just as much knowledge as the attorneys in the courtroom and the judge in the courtroom. And you think you can do their job without any education whatsoever. That's the worst thing you could ever do.
Well, this is JPM. He knows everything. He has God
Yeah.
on his side.
Yeah.
According to reporting by Post and Courier. So we're going to be speaking with an attorney who's apparently representing several of those defendants in a minute and has been actively following the John Paul Micah Miller situation. By the way, she actually represented Micah Miller at one point, but there is another legal development regarding this that we want to talk about as well. Because as reported by Fitz News, one of the people that John Paul Miller is suing, a woman named Melissa Moncari, she claims he tried to bribe her. Yeah, the allegation is that he offered to pay her money to lie under oath and that he would drop his suit against her in exchange. And the way that she claims she can prove this, she apparently filed a letter with the clerk of the Horry County Court that contained screenshots of her communications with John Paul. We don't have those screenshots, but we have a description of what's being talked about here, that he allegedly, according to Fitz News, that he wanted her to testify that these protesters, quote, attack cars, harass him, take pictures of license plates, post license plates online, abuse him, and stalk him at every location he visits. That is the allegation, that he wanted her to testify to this. Now, again, she wasn't going to testify to this. She didn't believe it.
Right?
Boo hoo hoo.
Yeah, I'm with you.
The nerve of this
and
guy.
She even reportedly went to the police about this. By the way,
You got to know it's all about him. I mean, it's the
Yep.
true narcissism.
Wow.
She had raised a challenge that she wasn't properly served, and in the end, his attorney dismissed the case against her. But we also know that John Paul Miller has faced other legal trouble in connection with these protesters or demonstrators. You see, on November 1st of last year, the FBI reportedly searched John Paul Miller's home, where they were seen removing items, although we still don't know and have further information on their findings or what's going on with that apparent investigation. But that was significant too. And I'll also tell you, based on Moncari's account, it is reported that there are now allegations John Paul Miller may have been trying to make sure authorities weren't monitoring his phone in connection with that investigation. But shortly after that search, tensions with protesters, they boiled over, and John Paul Miller, he was arrested after he got into an altercation with a woman outside of the church. That incident happened on November 6th, and video of that confrontation was posted on social media.
Y'all. What's going on?
And he was later arrested for allegedly touching the bill of that woman's hat. He was charged with third-degree assault and battery. He was released on bond the following day. Okay, so with all that in mind, I want to bring on a special guest right now, somebody who is intimately involved in a lot of what's going on here. I want to bring back onto Sidebar Regina Ward, South Carolina attorney who represents several of the defendants in these actions that were filed by John Paul Miller. At one point in time, she had represented Micah Miller's family and estate, and even Micah Miller at one point. Regina, thank you so much for coming on here on Sidebar. There's so much I want to talk to you about. First up, your reaction to this new lawsuit filed by Jane Doe.
Yes, actually, we've been getting some phone calls from people who have told us, when I say us, it's me and some other folks too. I'm not speaking on behalf of the FBI. A lot of people are misconstruing that, but people have been coming forward. And so we were very happy that there is a victim who has decided to go forward and file the suit. I think that it's going to embolden and give confidence to other victims. I am personally aware of a couple.
Yeah, I know there's more victims out there. There's no way he did this and just did it.
No, it's probably, unfortunately, it could be in the dozens. So a guy like this has to have more than, in my opinion, 10 victims.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately.
Of other victims. As you notice on the document, it's a Jane Doe number one. Normally, if we're suing on behalf of Jane Doe, we just say Jane Doe or John Doe whenever we file something. But I think that Mr. Hood just did a fabulous job in the pleadings and very I don't like to use the word happy because it's not under happy circumstances, but I am very thrilled and happy to see that this has been initiated and started.
Are there statute of limitations issues? You consider this to be a claim from about 1998, assault and battery. There's negligence claims. There's also a violation of state law, a state statute. Is there a statute of limitations issue with this claim?
Well, that's part of the reason why Attorney Hood, who wrote the document or wrote the pleadings, went ahead and addressed that. There is case law on point that, basically when a statute of limitation begins to run is when you actually know that, you've been harmed by something or you should have known. Even if you don't know, actually, if the circumstances show you should have known, then that can actually start the statute of limitations.
So I guess they're saying that because you can say that you should have known about this predator being a member of your church, it strikes the statute of limitations, I'm assuming.
However, there is a case on point.
I never heard of something like that. Yeah, I never heard of something like that personally, but I mean, I guess if it's legally something like that, it can go through.
Yeah, I might have misunderstood her, but I think that's what she's saying. I don't know.
Cited in the paperwork that talks about, repressed memories and things like that. So if you don't have a memory of that event as being alleged here, then there is case law on point that says that the statute of limitations doesn't run until that memory has been recalled. So
that would be from 2023 when she claimed she was sexually assaulted by John Paul Miller again.
Yes. And so when that happened in 2023, obviously that's, within a couple of years, most types of lawsuits have about a 3-year statute of limitations. Some have 2, some have 6. It just depends. But generally speaking, these types of cases have about a 3-year statute of limitations. So with that recent event, that certainly the filing is certainly within the statute of limitations. And so then the attorney was going ahead putting it out there that yes, he recognizes the other event was at a prior time. And so that would have been the very first motion that any defense attorney would have filed. So he just went ahead and put the brakes on that right away by citing a case law that's right on point for that.
And I appreciate you mentioning, in that complaint, they talk about victims and Jane Doe number 1, seemingly anticipating that there could be more lawsuits down the road.
Absolutely.
Big part of this case that I wasn't expecting. I mean, I don't think none of us were really expecting a lawsuit like this, but the fact that Reginald came up so much, and even included an affidavit from his ex-wife from back in 2001, where she made a series of allegations against him. Do you believe that he should be on the hook in this lawsuit? And what role does all of those past allegations play in this?
Yes, I absolutely think that he should be on the hook for that.
It shows generational and a pattern of abuse stemming generations.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, it can just show that this seems to have been an occurring thing where the father was committing acts, probably other people, higher up church members, and then of course his son was just given free reign. And so yeah, I think it's very possible. We just have to see how it goes in the legal process.
Yep. I don't know if y'all seen that video of him with the ants crawling on him, but it's absolutely hilarious.
I haven't seen that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Basically, Mr. John Paul Miller essentially assumed the shoes of Reginald Wayne Miller back in the day when he was, the pastor and so forth. So he actually had been convicted and, of a felony, done some time. And also there have been many allegations of his impropriety, within the church and so forth. So whenever you look at the church itself, I know that everyone looks at it like both of the Millers are the church. They're, somehow it's just all them. I may have a tendency to somewhat agree with that, and that's been addressed in the pleadings too. But essentially, if you take it for a moment and put it in a different situation, let's say that it's a whole different church, and these two pastors were, I apologize, I really don't want to call either one of them a pastor, but these two defendants were working in that same environment, like a school with children and so forth and so on. The people who are in charge of whatever church or organization they would work for would have been held accountable for bringing in these types of people who have a past history that could, present some sort of potential for harm for children. And
a lot of times these churches have schools in them for young children and things like that. There's a very significant correlation between schools and the church. By laying it out like that.
And I was just thinking about, I know it's sort of a separate case, but the whole Maddie situation where, I've heard some people say that maybe the school could get somehow financially liable in the sense of like not being there and helping her out more. So it's like, it really does get complicated when you see how the church, which does have a school in it, and then of course like regular schools, if there's any kind of abuse going on, some authority has to get involved and then try to figure out like what's going on,
Yeah. Yep.
And so the organization, a business, an employer, whatever, if you bring in people that have a history and a tendency to harm other people, and that organization can be held accountable for that.
Now I have to ask you about these 20 lawsuits that were filed by John Paul Miller against people he claims were improperly demonstrating outside of his church. What is the status of those lawsuits? What are his main arguments that he's making? What are his main claims?
Yeah, thank you. So let's get the numbers straight. It's actually 33 whenever you add in the two, cohorts is also filing on his behalf. So it's a total of 33 of those. Some were for restraining orders only. Some others were for actual like damages in terms of stalking, harassment, his allegations, and that he's lost money and income and so forth on that. So so the status is a lot of them started getting dismissed, and then the first one that was actually well, I shouldn't say the first one. There was one earlier that went to court, and it was granted, but those were a little bit different circumstances in that particular case. But generally, all of the other restraining orders were filed specifically against what people refer to as protesters. I really don't like to call them protesters. I think they're demonstrators. I think they're supporters of survivors and so forth. But anyway, that's what they've been referred to. So he's filed multiple actions against them, both for restraining order against them to keep them away from him, and the second one, some of them have been served with a general damages suit.
And his claims are what? Invasion of privacy and defamation. You don't believe that those are viable claims because you represent several of the defendants, right?
Yes, I actually did go forward on a trial with him in the first restraining order that was against what we call the protesting group, I guess it would be, and I won. So we got that taken care of. Once that happened, it set off a chain of events after that where Mr. Miller.
What were you saying, love?
No, I was just laughing that he lost that one. So
yeah,
they beat him.
Again, it's the grandiosity of everything. He's got to be, he's the victim perpetually.
And then there's like 33 cases against all these people. Oh, I'm gonna silence. Oh, hush, hush, hush! My dog is barking. I got his food set up right now.
Oh,
There
okay.
we go.
You're good.
I was like, hush.
That's sweet.
But he's good. He's good now.
started dropping other suits. I had offered up, hopefully to help some other people who might need my help in that situation. So he started dropping those after we had that first victory. And then one of the other plaintiffs that was filing on his behalf, he had filed 4 actions against 4 different people, and those all got dropped. So I didn't get to, I literally have a table that keeps up with all these. I'm sorry, I should have brought it in here with me, but a lot of them have been dropped. The one that I had today, Mr. Miller agreed to drop it before we ever got in the courtroom. So
I think he just tried to file a lot of things because he felt that his standing in the community would get him through again, like it always had in the past. And he's starting to realize that people are turning on him, and he's not who he played himself off to be for so long.
And these the Micah demonstrators are not going anywhere. I mean, it's been what, a year, 2 years, almost a year since the her death. So it's like they ain't going anywhere. They ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
Nope.
Why? Why did he agree to drop it?
I don't think he wanted to lose in court again like he did before.
Why is he losing? Why are those cases being dismissed? Is there some, and by the way, I believe he's representing himself, right? Was there something legally deficient in the filings? Why are they getting thrown out?
Yeah, absolutely. So they were after mine this morning. There were 3 more that were heard, and a different lawyer handled those. And those, as I just got the word before I walked in here to meet with you, those were heard by the judge, full courtroom, witnesses, everything. The judge denied them all. And so what he has pled in his restraining order documents is, first of all, it's like harassment in the first degree, harassment in the second degree, and stalking. Okay, it's a form that they have at the courthouse, and you're usually supposed to pick one of them. Well, he picked all 3 of them, and so it's like what's one or the. It's not usually all of those; it's one or the other. But the other thing that makes it weak for him is that he selected particular dates. Okay. 3 or 4 dates. The law says that you have to have a minimum of 2 events to report. So he would report 3 or 4 events as opposed to just 2, cushioning the blow there, I guess. And so the witnesses that he brought today to court on the other case, it's all been kind of the same thing. This is the reason I won the first one. It's because the witnesses, when you look at them and you say, did you see my client standing over there? And can you identify, did you know who that is? And all the witnesses were saying, I've seen the protesters, and they talk about them as a group. But most of the
you've got to be specific. He's requesting specific restraining orders against specific people, and the witnesses aren't even being specific.
These cases are, they're not going to go nowhere. And even if he wants to continue, it's good to be like dismissed, because he still wants to represent himself. He's not getting his own lawyer because I know why he doesn't want to do it, because of the money. He doesn't want to waste his own money on something like that.
Yep.
What an idiot. What an idiot.
He really is. I don't even understand how this man became a pillar of the community like he did, being a pastor at the church.
A lot of times it's just, with all these other predators, they just know how to sneak and be placing this happy, friendly side. And then, of course, we all know their real deep, dark side. Well, those around them that really know,
Yep. Unfortunately.
So, yeah, I just think he was just doing that. And now it's catching up. So.
This could not say, yeah.
Sorry, love. You think he was just doing that, and then now it's one?
It's catching up on him now. Just his ways have been acting. So I can't say what's going to happen with this plaintiff one case. We just have to wait and see. But I think a lot more dominoes are falling down for him at the very least. Now, I don't know about his dad, but he's definitely going down. The son.
Yep.
Yes, and point to someone and go, yes, that's Jane Doe, or yes, that's John Doe. It was mostly testimony about the whole group, the whole support group.
What is your client's defense? So let's say you have a case that is going to go forward. He's making claims of that you're invading my privacy. They're making false statements about me. This is a form of harassment. What is the legal defense to this that you're presenting. I believe it's a First Amendment argument.
It is. It's definitely a First Amendment argument as to the folks who are demonstrating. Okay, they do have a First Amendment right. But however, people hear this all the time. They go, I have a right to go out and protest. You absolutely do. But let's not forget that your rights go only so far as they can until they start interfering with someone else's rights. Okay, so to go out and protest, as long as it's peaceably done, is perfectly fine. But if they start, attacking individuals, directly, or screaming obscenities and things like that, that does become some form of harassment, I guess. But really, the basic defense, first of all, is the First Amendment right. But the second one that seems to keep working the most is that he can't make his case. He's not finding, like he made a complaint that he felt harassed on a particular day, and we were able to show he wasn't even outside. He saw a video that somebody else showed him. So, he's all over the place. He picks random dates, and people like today even testified, some of his witness, like, I don't remember what happened that day. No, I can't say that person was there,
Let me ask you this. Look,
he's being a little frivolous little butthole. Veronica said if he can be a pastor, maybe Stephen Stearns could be one too. Let us all pray that never happens. Lord have mercy.
Yeah, I know.
Litigation's a headache for anybody involved. There was reporting that he said, I will drop all the cases if everybody agrees to stay 500 feet away from me. Is that something that your clients would entertain?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the thing, whenever there's litigation, there really is actually an obligation to try to resolve litigation, okay, before taking up the court's time. So there is a rule that's on point for that. So whenever on that particular day, I was in another court on another case and wasn't there to hear him say that. So I actually called him up and said, I heard that you made some kind of settlement offer in an open court. So what was it? And so he went through some of those terms, and I was like, I have a duty, if you're making an offer for settlement, to take that to my client.
Hey, Mind of Monsters. That's a really sweet offer. We on Maddie's birthday, we raised a lot. We raised money. And probably tomorrow I will be calling the school and donating it to the school, and then we had a day of silence for her on the 25th, which is the day that the DNA paperwork says that she passed away. So that's kind of what we're doing to remember her over here. I think the locks of love are really sweet. I just I wanted to do something different that would maybe benefit the other children in her school and go towards the chorus and things like that. That was my thought process on that. But I really appreciate the offer, and it's really good to see you. That was a very sweet question to ask. I do appreciate it. I hope you're doing good.
As an attorney, I can't say yes or no to you. I'm obligated to give it to my client. And of course, I needed to, it always happens. People say one thing, and when it comes out in a writing, it may look like something else. So I just basically said, email me, your proposal, and I'll have a look at it. And I had put out in the world before that any of the pro se folks, defendants, that if they wanted to contact my office, I was trying to help them on how to, represent themselves. So the same thing with the settlement proposal. The settlement proposal, as it was initially proposed, was unacceptable. And so, it
why?
Well, for me, as the lawyer looking at it, it left out some pertinent terms, and it also was too broad. If you have to remain 2 football fields away from a particular place, that's nearly impossible. I mean, we live, our entire community is a parallel community to the ocean. So everything's in a straight line here, it seems like.
Sure.
So that would just, that would be risking someone being, held in that case, it would breach a contract, because it's not a restraining order, which is critically important to the settlement. Okay. It's like, for instance, with him dropping my client's case this morning, we said, okay, that's great, but let's go ahead and go back and talk about this proposed settlement, because there was something that was very important to my client that she wanted to get, make sure that that was preserved. Don't have permission to talk about what that was exactly.
Sure.
But anyway, it was very important for her. So we did seize the opportunity to say, hey,
Okay, thank you. If you guys would like for Mind of Monsters to put a lock there for you guys, I'm sure they would. They have a channel. I don't have my phone's on the charger and I don't have the link. But if you look up their channel, I'm sure you could get up. They could get up with you maybe that way if they want to do that. That was very sweet of you to offer, and I really appreciate that.
hey, let's go ahead and circle back to what your proposal was. And I made some revisions to it that I felt were, much more reasonable and probably on point. But the key point being that my client, while I like to think I would win every time, you never have those guarantees, right? So that's impossible. So what's the best interest of my client? If she's interested in it, is for me to control the outcome of the case. And the settlement proposal is the control of an outcome of the case. My client felt very satisfied and ecstatic about, the result of that. And basically with regard to that settlement proposal as well, is that if Mr. Miller had won, on this particular time, then there would be a legally enforceable restraining order, which is a bad sounding thing. Okay. Nobody wants that. Have you ever had a restraining order against you? You don't want to have to be able to say yes to something like that.
Right.
So it was very important that was not a risk for my client.
I understand. Okay. So we'll see how those progress. And I understand there were, I think, counterclaims filed as well. Right? Is that real quick before we move on to one final point? Were there counterclaims filed by your clients?
All right. I think we got the gist of that. Well, I'll just play the last few minutes of it because after this, I'll have to go for the day. There's about 5 more minutes left, so we'll listen.
I'm about to say I'm gonna get ready to head off, but it was nice to jump on the panel and discuss about this case.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming up, and I hope you have a good day, and I hope that work gets easier.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And same to you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Have a good day. Bye. Indie Girl Moving is stressed. Sorry that you're going through that. Mind of Monsters, I'm gonna put your link in the description box since today's live's almost over and my phone is on the charger. As soon as we're done here, I will put your link in the description box and have people get up with you if they would like to donate locks or if they want you to put one out there for them. I think that's so very sweet.
Yes. So let me straighten that out. There's been 2 types of filings by Mr. Miller. Okay. One is for restraining orders only. Those are petitions for restraining orders only based on harassment or stalking, in his opinion. Okay. Then he filed a different type of lawsuits that seek damages, loss of income, etc., things like that. So those are pending. There are some that were, all of them have answers and counterclaims. I've filed answers and counterclaims on behalf of my client that has one of those suits against him. And the other attorney did the same thing. Now, these have the potential. 3 of them are already going to get moved up to what we call circuit court. That's the higher, they have a higher jurisdiction. There's no limit to the amount of damages of money that can be awarded in those cases as opposed to magistrate court, which is $7,500. So there's a possibility that my client's case may be moved up to circuit court as well. We're just waiting for a couple of things before we make that final decision.
And their counterclaims for what? What are the claims?
Yeah, so my client is this one particular client is a little bit different. He actually was a former employee or volunteer in the church. He played in the band pretty much every Sunday. He was there every Wednesday, practicing and so forth. He and his wife both. His wife was involved in, the Sunday school ministry and providing daycare and things like that for churchgoers. So they were really involved in the church. His wife for about 5 years, him for about 3 years, and during the course of that time, they actually, developed a personal relationship with Micah and Mr. Miller, and so they both confided in my client and his wife about certain aspects of their marriage. I personally think that he filed a case against my client specifically because, he's concerned he may have some information may be relevant to the FBI. Not particularly saying that, but he definitely was on the inside of that church and involved with Mr. and Mrs. Miller at that time. So the counterclaims that I filed on his behalf are the same types of things. It was defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, those types of things.
Gotcha. Okay, Regina, before we let you go, I have to ask you real quick about the claims of Melissa Moncari, basically saying that John Paul Miller engaged in bribery, that he was trying to evade his phone being monitored in connection with the federal investigation.
Oh my God.
Just real quick, your insight into those claims.
Yeah, so I do plan on addressing that fully on another platform, but just very quickly. I think there is a misconception. There may be other lawyers who disagree with me, but as far as do we personally think that may have been intended to be some sort of a bribe or whatever? It maybe, but I'm looking at what was provided, and quite frankly, I don't see what she's alleging. I don't see a bribe. Okay, I don't see that. It's not uncommon, okay, for lawsuits to be pending and people try to, as I said, they're required to negotiate or attempt negotiation. And that I don't see that as a bribe. The other thing is Ms. Moncari made a comment about that it was witness tampering. Well, no, it's not witness tampering unless you're actually a witness. And she is not a witness to anything that had to do with Micah or Mr. Miller. When all of this stuff happened, there was one point where she may have been an important witness, but she blew that when she opened her mouth and started talking about it, if what she said was even true to begin with.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate your perspective on that. We're going to keep a very careful eye on all aspects of the John Paul Miller situation. Regina Ward, really appreciate you coming on. Always loved seeing you and giving some perspective about what is happening from a firsthand account. So, Regina.
So that was what I found on that story. I really pray that young lady the person who had been abused for years gets justice for what she went through when she was 15 and then again in 2023. I know today's stream might have been kind of hard because that documentary is just something else. Goodness gracious. It is. I agree, Zan. Zan said, I may be jaded, but so many creeps rise to the top in church communities. It's like everyone looks the other way. Yep. Veronica said, he doesn't know I have months yet. He'll kill me. So I'd rather just appear over there. He can't say anything about it. Oh, no. I don't know what's going on with that. Moth's mommy said, use the same method he used on Maddie. Eye for an eye. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, he deserves jail time and a lot of other things too. I do want to let you know that I'm not going to be here tomorrow because I have to go do some things, but we will be back Saturday. Happy early birthday, Anders. I will have a song for you on Saturday. And and thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I love you guys so much. You guys are amazing. We really do have the best chat on YouTube. And I thank you so much for your support. I can't wait to see y'all all Saturday. I know I will have missed you thoroughly by then. And we're always in Discord if you guys want to join that. I need to put that in my Nightbot thing, in the Nightbot thing too, so you guys can join Discord. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you so much for your support. And I will see you Sunday. Have a good night. Stay safe out there. Don't do anything crazy and give the babies a hug. I'll see y'all Saturday. Bye.